Chapter 14 Extraordinary Player's Physique. Chapter 14 Extraordinary Player's Physique. The simultaneous attacks from the three assassins caused a lot of damage to Blackie. Even though he wore several pieces of common cloth armor, he had still lost nearly half of his HP. System: Guild Shadow has attacked your party. All party members are allowed to attack members of Guild Shadow without penalty. Duration of 1 hour. I'll fight you guys. Blackie knew he was sure to die. His speed was not comparable with an assassin's. However, he also wanted to retaliate before he died. Blackie started chanting a curse, firing a dark arrow towards Quiet Wolf at 0 distance. Quiet Wolf smiled in disdain. Although the arrow was unavoidable, he still had 80 HP at level 0. How strong could a Cursemancer's attack be? Could it possibly instant kill him? Hong. The dark arrow hit Quiet Wolf. A damage of 76 points appeared above Quiet Wolf's head, instantly leaving him with only some leftover HP. Quiet Wolf immediately became dumbfounded after seeing such damage, his eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. The other two assassins were equally shocked. How is this even a Cursemancer? This was just a cannon. The person who dealt the damage was also shocked. Blackie had never imagined that the level 3 dark arrow would be so powerful. In reality, however, it wasn't just the level 3 dark arrows taking effect. There was also the high damage Blackwood staff, the aura effect of Might of 1000, and the bonus damage from level suppression. Such extreme damage was only possible with all these added together. Crap, let's kill him, brothers. His staff is definitely a mysterious iron equipment. As a veteran gamer, Quiet Wolf quickly reacted, revealing his greed towards Blackie's weapon. Blackie being able to deal such a high damage was definitely due to a mysterious iron weapon. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to nearly instant kill Quiet Wolf. Suddenly, the other two assassins became full of energy as they rushed towards Blackie. Not to mention a mysterious iron weapon, they didn't even have a common weapon. If they could get Blackie's mysterious iron weapon, then they would profit beautifully. The three assassins attacked again, leaving Blackie with only 6 HP remaining. When they saw that Blackie was about to die, the three assassins became even more excited. The mysterious iron weapon was about to come into their hands. At this moment, with unbelievable movement methods, Shifeng appeared in front, blocking Blackie. 3 sword strikes blocked the attacks from the three assassins, creating 3 sparks. All 3 assassins were sent flying backward. Before the assassins could get over their shock, streaks of thunder appeared within their vision. 3 streaks of thunder struck the assassins that were still floating in midair. Damages of -32, -41, -50 appeared on all 3 of their heads, all of their HP dropping to 0. Their bodies turned into starlight and disappeared within an instant. Because assassins had low defense and were under level suppression, the effect of a level 2 thundering flash was extremely horrifying. Brother Feng. Blackie became dumbfounded as he looked at Shifeng's back, dumbly saying, "Are you Brother Feng?" Everything had happened all too quickly. Shifeng had suddenly appeared and swung his sword 3 times, blocking 3 attacks from different directions. Then, he had followed it up with a thundering flash. All of these actions had been carried out within an instant. It was so fast that the assassins could not even react. Shifeng's actions and reactions were just inhuman. If Blackie wasn't familiar with the Shifeng in front of him, he might have even thought it was someone else pretending to be Shifeng. After sweeping his gaze around, Shifeng discovered 8 players surrounding them. Leading these players was Flaming Tiger. Shifeng no longer dared to stay behind, hurriedly saying, "Why are you still in a daze? Let's go." Shifeng had activated Fast and Nimble, completely releasing his body's degree of freedom. However, even though he had a constitution that could keep up and react to his thoughts, his actual body's attributes were too low. He had a very hard time controlling his body, and it was also mentally taxing. Taking explosive maneuvers 2 to 3 times was still possible, but doing it long-term was definitely too much. The enemies also consisted of numerous healers and jobs that equipped plate armor. Shifeng and Blackie's only choice, now, was to run away. Blackie continuously nodded his head. "Everyone go at them. You must definitely get me my bronze equipment and take over this mine." Flaming Tiger licked the corner of his lips. He was extremely excited. He did not mind the death of the 3 assassins at all. Originally, Flaming Tiger was still burning with rage. They had spent hours at Dark Moon Valley searching for Shifeng and his partner, causing their leveling speed to fall greatly. However, they had accidentally discovered Shifeng and Blackie grinding monsters. At first, Flaming Tiger had wanted to immediately surround and kill the 2. However, when he saw Blackie utilizing the smoke cloud at the cave's entrance to kill the level 4 kobolds, Flaming Tiger nearly died from excitement. His hatred towards Shifeng had also reduced by a large half. He had even wanted to thank Shifeng for giving him such a valuable location. The difficulty of killing monsters of a higher level was famously known. If he could kill level 4 monsters without any harm, then his leveling speed would be absolutely horrifying. It won't be more than 10 hours before he would be leading the other players. After he had gained a huge advantage over others, the task of uniting Red Leaf Town would be at his fingertips. When that time came, he might even become Shadow Workshop's captain. Countless virtual game companies had closed shop because of God's Domain's opening. There were billions of players joining God's Domain. To obtain their share in this, many enterprises and financial groups started investing in God's Domain, one after the other. God's Domain could be said to be the most profitable virtual game in the world. Flaming Tiger thought about how he would be able to stand out in Red Leaf Town. He thought about forcefully taking the large guilds down a peg. He also thought about becoming Shadow's captain. When that time came, obtaining expensive cars, beautiful ladies, and luxury mansions were only a matter of time. When Flaming Tiger thought of these things, he became unspeakably excited. He had to appreciate Shifeng for giving all of these things to him. However, appreciation remained just appreciation. He still couldn't let the bronze equipment on Shifeng and Blackie go. Brother Tiger, those 2 are too fast. We can't catch up to them. A berserker said. They're lucky that they run fast. However, this precious piece of land is enough. Flaming Tiger's eyes shone when he looked at the mine. He had already fantasized himself leading Red Leaf Town with flair. Brother Tiger, what about Quiet Wolf and the other 2? The 3 of them fell back to level 0. They also lost quite a lot of skill proficiency, an elementalist asked. Flaming Tiger rolled his eyes at his subordinate, asking, is this even a problem? You saw as well just now. The kobolds within the smoke cloud won't attack players if they're attacked from a distance. Those are level 4 monsters. Leveling will be easy, so hurry them over here. Brother Tiger is still the smart one. Being able to find such a precious spot, Brother Tiger will definitely become the number 1 person in Shadow. The elementalist started bootlicking Flaming Tiger. Scram. Number 1 person in Shadow? I am the number 1 person in God's Domain. Flaming Tiger angrily responded. The other members of Shadow also agreed, one after another, laughing at the elementalist for licking on the wrong boot. A moment later, 3 mage players started attacking from a distance. As for the other players, they lured the monsters into the smoke cloud. Under Flaming Tiger's command, they started killing the kobolds in an orderly manner. Great, this is just great. Even after sharing a kobold's EXP with so many people, my experience still increased by 2%. Brother Tiger, this is really fantastic. These monsters also drop ore and a lot of money. Not only that, but these kobolds also respawn quickly. We can grind here without limits until we reach level 6. By that time, we Shadow will definitely become Red Leaf Town's number 1 guild. The members of Shadow started laughing happily. It wouldn't take many hours before every one of them reached level 6. It was already great just imagining how they would suppress the other guilds in Red Leaf Town. Ha ha ha. Consider yourselves lucky for following me. The other team leaders are nothing. When the time comes, I'll become Shadow's captain. Flaming Tiger was in a great mood. With such an increase in experience, it wouldn't take an hour before he rose to level 2, compensating for his previous losses. Meanwhile, at the nearby location of Crimson Star Mine, Blackie was grinding his teeth in anger. Brother Fong, are we just going to let this go? That was hard to obtain information that came from a beta tester, but now it's just profiting these people. I get angry just from thinking about it. These people from Shadow are just shameless. Fortunately, I didn't join them. Shifeng shook his head as he looked at the system panel's clock, smiling indifferently. They dare to steal my things. We'll let them enjoy it for now. In a moment, we'll let them know after happiness comes sorrow. Chapter 15 After happiness comes sorrow. Chapter 15 After happiness comes sorrow. Time passed, bit by bit. Shifeng and Blackie did not just do nothing. They were killing level 4 roaming gnomes in a place not far from Crimson Star Mine. Roaming gnome, common. Level 4. HP 400. Compared to the kobolds, the roaming gnomes were much agiler. They were very good at dodging. However, their attack and defense weren't all that good. Moreover, Dark Moon Valley had yet to be developed. The monsters here were more numerous, and there was nobody here to compete with. There was no need to search for monsters to kill. Shifeng was already a level 3 swordsman, while Blackie was a level 2 cursemancer. After activating Fast and Nimble, the roaming gnome's dagger had no chance of even touching Shifeng. As for Blackie, his damage was even fiercer after drinking a black steel beer. With Shifeng entangling the gnomes in the front, and Blackie dealing damage from behind, killing off the roaming gnomes became very easy. The efficiency was even better than grinding off the kobolds. In the front of the Crimson Star Mine, groups of kobolds laid still before the mine's entrance. Copper coins and various kinds of ores were scattered all over the ground. Brother Tiger, this place is just too great. It's just been over half an hour, and everyone is already level 2. So much money dropped, as well. Ha ha ha, keep up the effort everyone. You three, lure more monsters. As long as we continue grinding this way, it will only be 3 to 4 hours before we can rise to level 3. Flaming Tiger excitedly commanded the 3 assassins that just recently arrived to lure the kobolds. The mags were already level 2, so the speed of killing the kobolds had increased by a big leap. Luring a group of over 30 kobolds was not enough for them. Brother Tiger, something dropped here. A berserker held on to a book as he shouted. Bring it here, let me have a look at it. Flaming Tiger said while smiling. He licked his dried lips when he saw something dropped. After Flaming Tiger received the book, he suddenly started laughing loudly. Great, really great. Not only has the spot that kid found after much effort been taken over by me, but if he knew a rare skill for swordsman was even in my hands. I really want to see that kid's look of regret. Brother Tiger, I saw that kid when I came here. They were still nearby killing roaming gnomes. I'm guessing that they're still unwilling to leave and still thinking of this place. Why don't we go over and kill them? Save us some trouble. A cold glint flashed through Quiet Wolf's eyes. They were filled with killing intent. He was overcome by a great resentment after being killed twice by Shifeng. Flaming Tiger waved his hand, with a disdainful smile on his face as he said, then let them look. Watch at how fast we level up and earn money, and at how we become the tyrants of Red Leaf Town. Meanwhile, they can only watch from aside with their hearts full of regret and unwillingness. Ha ha ha, I feel great just thinking about it. Although Quiet Wolf still held some resentment over it, when he imagined Shifeng's unwilling appearance and how he could only exhaust himself killing roaming gnomes, Quiet Wolf's heart felt a great gust of pleasure. Just you wait. The moment I reach level 6 will be your death. Quiet Wolf did not actually give up on killing Shifeng. Instead, when he thought about the pleasure he would feel after killing Shifeng when he was level 6, he couldn't help but look forward to it. Meanwhile, in the forest 60 yards south of the Crimson Star Mine, Shifeng was using a tree to hide while he observed Flaming Tiger and the others. Brother Feng, can the two of us handle it? Blackie asked in a worried tone. These 11 people were not just any average players. They were experts that had passed Shadow Workshop's examination. Moreover, there were 2 healers on their side. It was impossible to kill all of these people just by depending on the 2 of them. Relax. The time is almost up. We'll just watch the show. Shifeng looked at the time, indifferently saying, in a moment, you go stand at the back. Kill whoever has low HP. Don't let even one of them get away. Time is almost up. Blackie didn't understand what it meant. Shifeng pointed towards the smoke cloud in front of the Crimson Star Mine's entrance, saying with a smile, "That flaming tiger must think that killing monsters of a higher level is easy. The smoke bomb that we placed before we left has a time limit, and only 2 minutes are left before the hour is up. Did they think they could continuously enjoy my domain after stealing it from me? Now, I'll teach them how to be proper human beings." Blackie was struck with a realization. His worship towards Shifeng became even greater now. Brother Feng is still the smartest. Those brats from Shadow are definitely goners this time, Blackie said with a grin. The reason they could cross levels and harmlessly kill kobolds was that of the smoke bombs. They definitely couldn't do without them. If there were no smoke bomb, then the consequences would be horrifying. 2 minutes later, the smoke cloud in front of the Crimson Star Mine slowly dispersed. "Brother Tiger, why is that smoke cloud disappearing?" an elementalist asked Flaming Tiger after noticing the disappearing smoke cloud. "The smoke cloud disappeared. It can't be." Flaming Tiger abruptly woke up from his nap. When he looked over at the mine's entrance, the smoke cloud really did disappear. If it's gone, then fine. The smoke cloud might be a periodic thing. Don't bother with it, keep on grinding. Just as Flaming Tiger finished speaking, the usually stupid-looking kobolds that did not retaliate suddenly looked towards the members of Shadow Workshop in unison. There were over 40 kobolds with blood-red eyes. The kobolds let out angry growls after finally discovering the people who had been attacking them. Suddenly, they all came rushing forth. The members of Shadow did not react at all. Within an instant, they were surrounded and given a beating by the kobolds. A level 2 player could hardly take 3 hits from a kobold, not to mention a group of kobolds. 7 players died within a blink of an eye. The backline players became a mess as they ran for their lives. However, the kobolds were very fast. It only took them moments to catch up to the escaping mags. For each mage, they were gifted a hammer to their heads. The mags quickly lie still on the floor, never to rise up again. Crap, what is going on here? Why did these kobolds suddenly become insane? Flaming Tiger cursed. He quickly turned tail and ran the moment he noticed the situation turned bad. They had risen to level 2 after much effort. However, this death sent them all back to level 1. There were even 3 assassins who were level 0. It was an absolute loss. With such an increase and decrease, the dream becoming the tyrants of Red Leaf Town also perished. Instead, the current members of Shadow weren't even up to par with the average player. They were even further away from the other guilds. Flaming Tiger's heart started to bleed in pain. "We meet again, Brother Tycoon," Shifeng said with an indifferent smile. He currently blocked Flaming Tiger's escape path. After seeing Shifeng's sneer, even an idiot would understand that the kobold's rebellion had something to do with him. "You're dead for sure, kid. You dare to actually scheme against me. If I don't kill you back to level 0, then my name will be read backward." All of Flaming Tiger's hair stood up in anger. He raised his shield and swung it at Shifeng. Compared to the other members of Shadow Workshop, Flaming Tiger's skills were clearly a tier higher. With one hand, he used his shield to block Shifeng's vision, while he used the other to stab his short sword towards Shifeng's vital point. It was simple, yet sinister, and it was very hard to stop. However, Flaming Tiger's confident strike struck air. "Where is he?" Flaming Tiger fixed his gaze to the front. However, there wasn't even a shadow of a person present. "Over here." Shifeng stood behind Flaming Tiger, his sword waving down. Chop. A damage of -36 appeared above Flaming Tiger's head. His HP had instantly gone from 220 to 184. When Flaming Tiger was hit, he hurriedly spun around and used Shield Bash. However, Shifeng had long since seen through Flaming Tiger's movements. He took a step backward and spun his body around, hiding by the shield. Then, Shifeng arrived once more at Flaming Tiger's back, giving him another sword slash. Without the use of any skills, Shifeng could only deal 23 damage to a shield warrior with high defense. "You coward. Don't hide if you have the ability. I can kill you anytime I want." Flaming Tiger could not land any hits on the agile Shifeng. His HP was constantly decreasing, and only 83 points of it remained now. He had no way of dealing with Shifeng's attacks, so he decided to start ridiculing Shifeng in hopes of provoking him, allowing Flaming Tiger the chance to kill Shifeng. "Sure, I'll stand here without dodging. Come attack me then," Shifeng answered without hesitation. Flaming Tiger silently smiled. He never imagined that Shifeng was such a fool, taking the bait with just a small amount of stimulation. "Watch how I'll toy with you to death." Flaming Tiger raised his shield and used charge at Shifeng. If Shifeng didn't dodge, then he could only take the hit forcefully. In terms of strength, Flaming Tiger wouldn't lose to Shifeng. However, only disappointment was waiting for him. Just when Flaming Tiger was 2 yards away from Shifeng, Shifeng immediately used Thundering Flash. 3 streaks of thunder went past Flaming Tiger's shield, directly landing on his body. 3 high damages appeared above Flaming Tiger's head, -28, -35, -41, his HP instantly dropping to 0. "You! Despicable!" Flaming Tiger glared at Shifeng. He was furious to the point of spitting out blood. If it weren't for himself rushing towards Shifeng on his own accord, he wouldn't have been struck by all the attacks of that skill. "Are you alright, Brother Tycoon? I said I would stand here without dodging, but I've never said I wouldn't move my hands. How could you be so gullible, even rushing over yourself?" Shifeng spread out his arms, showing that it was all a mistake, saying, "Oh, right. I still have to thank Brother Tycoon for earning me so many ores. You've saved me a lot of time." Flaming Tiger pointed towards Shifeng, wanting to say something. However, his body had already turned into starlight and disappeared. He couldn't even utter a single word, only leaving behind a pile of ore and a single book. Chapter 16 Everyone's a Liar. Chapter 16 Everyone's a Liar. In Red Leaf Town's noisy plaza, flashes of white light appeared. Following which, figures of players appeared, one by one. These players were the revived members of Shadow. These people had down and extremely depressed expressions on their faces. Nothing could beat the pain and entangled feeling of having recently gained something, then losing it again. Just a moment ago, they were still dreaming of becoming the tyrants of Red Leaf Town. Their levels were increasing, it was like flying. In the next second, however, they died. Not only had their levels and skill proficiency decreased, but the experience they had at level 1 was also lower than before. They were much worse off compared to the average player. Flaming Tiger's expression after reviving was even more livid. His eyes alone could eat a person alive. "System, player Yifeng has killed you. You will be revived in Red Leaf Town after 3 seconds. At the same time, you will lose 1 level, and all your skill proficiencies will be reduced by 100 points. Yifeng, I will not let you off. I will definitely make you wish for death." Flaming Tiger let out an angry bellow after looking at the numbers displayed by the system. His actions had caused the other players to quickly avoid him, not daring to look at this madman. After venting for a while, Flaming Tiger ordered the other members of Shadow to check their bags, checking for the items they dropped. Although this death caused great losses for everyone, there wasn't just the EXP gained from killing kobolds. There was also loot. This was also the only thing they could be happy about. At the very least, they did not busy themselves for nothing. When Flaming Tiger took a look into his bag, a sweet taste suddenly entered his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood. At once. Immediately. We head for Dark Moon Valley, now. I must kill that kid. Flaming Tigers bellowed, his anger reaching up to the skies. The skill book that he planned on using to ridicule Shifeng was gone. It was an extremely rare skill for swordsmen, and it was also the most valuable item they got from grinding kobolds. Now, it was gone. However, the most unforgivable thing was that the skill book had fallen into Shifeng's hands. In the end, all of Flaming Tiger's efforts had become Shifeng's gains. This was something that he would not tolerate. His hatred was something that could not be resolved, even if he were to kill Shifeng back to level 0. The other members of Shadow did not understand what had happened to Flaming Tiger. Going to search for Shifeng right now was just a futile effort. Nobody would be foolish enough to wait for them to take revenge. Shifeng would definitely slip away, snickering at them in some other place. At this moment, Flaming Tiger's system communication rang. "Who is it? Disturbing me at this time, are you trying to die?" Flaming Tiger cursed after the call connected. "Flaming Tiger, your temper sure has grown after not meeting for a day." The voice on the other side was ice cold, as if in a furious rage. Flaming Tiger felt the familiarity of that voice. When he found the corresponding identity to the voice, his face suddenly turned extremely ugly. "Brother Zhong, it is you. I'm currently educating my subordinates. I never thought Brother Zhong would contact me. Brother Zhong, please don't mind it. I wasn't speaking about you just now. Enough. I already know about your problem. Just looking at the damage you've caused towards Shadow's development in Red Leaf Town, looking at what the good you've done has accomplished towards Shadow's development in Red Leaf Town, I'll come to you immediately. From now onwards, you don't have to continue being Red Leaf Town's team leader. Silent Rain, the team's elementalist, will take over temporarily. If you're still not level 2 by the time I arrive in Red Leaf Town, then you can just get lost. Shadow doesn't need garbage." Flaming Tiger became spiritless after hearing these words. His hatred for Shifeng would never be washed away, even by the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Meanwhile, in Dark Moon Valley, Shifeng and Blackie were picking up the drops from the members of Shadow. Shifeng was currently holding the skill book dropped by Flaming Tiger. Flaming Tiger really is too generous. He had even left me such an item. Shifeng chose to learn the skill without hesitation. Wind Blade, Action Type. Requires Sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0-300. Ambush an enemy outside 5 yards and within 30 yards. Movement speed will be increased by 40% when rushing towards the target, and attack speed increased by 20% for 3 seconds. Cooldown, 25 seconds. A swordsman mobility would be greatly increased with this skill. It was a great counter to rangers and mags who love to kite. Brother Feng, the meteorite ore we need are all here. There are also quite a few bronze or shadow really helped us big this time. Blackie laughed loudly. As he was collecting the ore from the ground, he noticed a piece of dark green Oregon. Picking it up, he asked, "Brother Feng, what is this star crystal?" When Shifeng heard about the star crystal, he ignored the meteorite ore below his feet, instantly turning around and running towards Blackie. "Damn, it really is a star crystal. Blackie, your luck is really too good. You even picked up such a thing," Shifeng said excitedly as he carefully looked at the dark green ore after receiving it. Every monster in the world had a chance of dropping a star crystal. The chances were 1,000,000 to 1. Maybe it was trash to other people, but to Shifeng, it was a priceless treasure. It was also the thing he needed the most. "Brother Feng, what is this star crystal for?" Blackie curiously asked. Shifeng was usually calm and indifferent. Such an excited reaction from him displayed the preciousness of the star crystal. "It's for eating, but not for players." Shifeng smiled slightly but did not continue explaining as he kept the star crystal. "It's for eating?" Blackie was slightly confused. Who would eat a rock? However, Shifeng must have his own reasons for not explaining, so Blackie did not continue asking about it. A moment later, all the drops were collected. They had received a total of 14 pieces of meteorite ore, and 32 pieces of bronze ore. Not only had they completed Shifeng's quest, they even had some leftovers. Subsequently, the 2 of them arrived at the smithy. "Master Jack, I have collected the meteorite ore you asked for." Shifeng handed over all of the meteorite ore, not leaving even one behind. These were all quest items. A stack of them would only sell for 1 copper to an NPC. It was utterly worthless. Not bad, young man. However, if you wish to become an outstanding forger, you still need to have enough strength to obtain precious ore. There is a powerful kobold chieftain. Go kill it to prove your strength. Master Jack said eloquently as he stored away the meteorite ore. System, Hidden Quest Road of Forging. Kill the kobold chieftain inside Crimson Star Mine. Time limit of 1 hour. When Shifeng saw that there was still a second stage to the quest, Shifeng wished he could curse Hammer Trading. He had caused Shifeng big trouble this time. As expected, everybody would have kept something to themselves. Nobody could be trusted. Everyone's a liar. In Shifeng's previous life, hammer trading had not mentioned a second stage of the quest. Now a second stage, time-limited quest had appeared. It was even against a chieftain monster. That wasn't an elite monster you simply run across. A chieftain was even stronger than a special elite. It was the equivalent of a dungeon's boss. Shifeng was just level 3, and a leader monster was just too deadly to him. In Shifeng's previous life, hammer trading was level 16 when he accepted the quest. Completing the quest was extremely easy. Forget it, let's have a look at it first. He could do nothing about being tricked. However, Shifeng did not plan to give up. The forging talent had too great of a use, and Shifeng must learn it. Following which, Shifeng and Blackie cleared the way of kobolds as they headed towards the deeper parts of the Crimson Star mine. Compared to the kobolds at the entrance, the kobolds inside were no longer level 4, they were level 5. They took more time and energy to kill. Often, another kobold would respawn before one was killed. If there weren't enough black steel beer to reduce the kobold's level by 2, then Shifeng and Blackie's killing speed would be completely unable to keep up with the respawn rate. Half an hour later, Shifeng and Blackie arrived at the deepest part of the Crimson Star mine. It was a large piece of empty land. There were over 10 kobolds mining for ore in the surroundings. There was a huge figure standing in the center of the empty area. It was a kobold that wore armor, and it was constantly giving out commands to the other kobolds. Kobold Chieftain, Chieftain rank. Level 5. HP 2100. Just its HP alone could cause a person despair, not to mention the heavy armor worn on the Kobold Chieftain. Its defense was definitely high. It was nearly impossible for physical type attacks to cause a lot of damage. Moreover, Chieftain rank monsters had a recovery speed of 2% HP every 5 seconds when in battle. That meant the Kobold Chieftain would recover 42 HP every 5 seconds. It was not a number to look down upon. An average level 5 player with physical type damage might not even be able to deal 42 damage within 5 seconds. As for using the smoke bombs to kill the Kobold Chieftain safely, that was completely impossible. A chieftain monster's range of vision was extremely wide. Even a kobold would have a vision range of 55 yards. Using the smoke bomb to reduce its vision by 10 yards would still leave it with 45 yards. Even for rangers, who had the furthest firing range of 40 yards, it was not enough. Shifeng thought through it again and again as he looked at the Kobold Chieftain before him, helplessly laughing. Do I really have to use that? Chapter 17, Magic Weapon Released, Famed Swordsman Born. Chapter 17, Magic Weapon Released, Famed Swordsman Born. Brother Feng, can we really beat this Kobold Chieftain? Blackie had not an ounce of confidence in him when he looked at the Kobold Chieftain. Ignoring its horrifying amount of HP, the giant axe on its back was enough to terrify someone. If Blackie were hit with that axe, he would definitely turn into meat paste within an instant. I don't know. Shifeng shook his head. Plans can never keep up with change. There was not a single terrain within the mine that could be used. They could only fight the Kobold Chieftain head-on if they wanted to kill it. The Kobold Chieftain was the most powerful monster Shifeng had met up with to this point. If he had enough time, Shifeng would come here when he was level 5, with a full body of bronze equipment. He would have an 80% chance by then. However, there was little left of the time that Forging Master Jack gave him. If he wanted to finish the battle within the 20 minutes remaining, then he would need to send out a small party of level 5 elites to do so. However, there were only 2 of them. Their equipment was also poor. Trying to kill the Kobold Chieftain within 20 minutes was utterly impossible. However, there would be dire consequences if the quest was not finished. There was only one chance to do this hidden quest. If it failed, Shifeng would not be able to receive it ever again. Thus, Shifeng was even more unwilling to give up this quest. I can only try it. Shifeng unwillingly took out the magic weapon, Abyssal Blade. In his previous life, the number of magic weapons Shifeng had personally witnessed could be counted on his fingers. Anybody who had seen a magic weapon's power would be brought to submission by it. Whereas, Those who could properly wield a magic weapon was as rare as a phoenix's feather. Crimson War God was one such person. He had grown to fame within a guild war that had involved over 100,000 people. During that war, Crimson War God held a blooded magic weapon, the Crimson Ghost Axe. He rushed into groups of thousands of warriors with the axe and slaughtered. There was no one who could block his giant axe. In the end, the enemy guild was forced to retreat in embarrassment. Crimson War God had created the scene of one man defending against 10,000. After that war, he built up the glorious War God Empire. There was also the madman, Windchaser. He held the magic weapon, Evil Spirit's Roar. With only the bow in hand, Windchaser had single-handedly defended a city. Of the thousands of enemy players, not one of them could enter within 100 yards of the city. Using a single arrow, Windchaser had even sniped Outstandingly Extraordinary, the guild leader of Imposing Expert. Outstandingly Extraordinary had been standing further than 100 yards from the city at that time. As long as they were a magic weapon user, then they would be famous, top-tier experts in God's domain that were respected by all. System: do you wish to bind the Abyssal Blade? Shifeng sucked in a deep breath, choosing to bind. He did not care anymore about the backlash of the magic weapon. Since those people could control the magic weapons, then how could he, as a reincarnated person, lose to those newbies that had yet to grow up? The moment the binding was finished, Shifeng could clearly feel his entire body's strength being sapped away. His levels, as well, dropped one after the other, becoming level 0 within an instant. In another moment, however, a force of strength started flowing through his body. His body's current constitution was even stronger than when he was level 3. When he checked the Abyssal Blade attributes, Shifeng became even more shocked. Abyssal Blade, magic weapon, one-handed sword. Attack power 24. All attributes plus 10. Attack speed plus 3. Ignore monsters level by 5. Attacks have a 15% chance to cause 2x damage, 10% chance to induce Doom Curse, reducing all stats by 30%, lasting 20 seconds. If wielder belongs to any swordsman job, all skill levels plus 2. Increase free ability points received by 2 points for every increase in level. Equipment level 0. Can be leveled up. Devour 10 level 5 bronze equipment and 1 level 5 mysterious iron equipment to level up to level 5. Can be evolved, unknown. Additional skill 1, Phantom Kill. Instantly creates a doppelganger. You can control this doppelganger. Doppelganger will have 50% of original body's attributes and all skills. At the same time, doppelganger and the original body can be swapped. Duration of 30 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. Additional skill 2, Abyssal Bind. Binds enemies and prevents movement, reducing defense by 100%. Duration of 3 seconds. Cooldown, 1 minute. Additional skill 3, 9 Dragon Slash. Instantly create 9 phantoms of the Abyssal Blade for the wielder to use. Each phantom sword is capable of dealing up to 30% damage. Duration of 20 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. The Abyssal Blade was personally created by Master Smith Olysses, using the Black Dragon King's fangs as material. It is one of 36 famed swords, and it is ranked 31st. However, this sword has been cursed by the Black Dragon King. Aside from being able to provide the wielder with immense strength, there would be a backlash after a certain period of time. If the wielder is unable to suppress the backlash, the wielder will receive the curse of the Black Dragon King, permanently reducing all attributes by 50%. Unable to be dropped. Unable to be traded. Seeing such attributes and these many additional skills, the Abyssal Blade was no different than a god's weapon. However, there were still 35 of these famed swords, and the Abyssal Blade was just one of the lower-ranked ones. It was hard to imagine what kind of sword the first-ranked was. Brother Feng, please don't scare me. How did you become level 0? Glancing at Shifeng from the side, Blackie became shocked. It had already been troublesome just facing the kobold chieftain. Now that Shifeng had fallen back to level 0, how could they fight it? Relax. Use the smoke bombs to clear off the small mobs first. Leave the kobold chieftain to me. Shifeng called up the attribute panel, placing all 6 free attribute points into agility. His agility had reached 20 points exactly, activating fast and nimble. Shifeng was very eager to test his sword on the kobold chieftain. Character: Yi Feng, human. Affiliated kingdom: Star Moon. Title: Might of 1000. Job: swordsman. Level: 0, HP, 460. Attack power: 72. Defense: 4, attack speed: 10. Movement speed: 8, attributes: strength 24, agility 20, endurance 22, intelligence 13, vitality 13. System: strength has reached 20 points. Activating hidden basic skill, smashing fists. Able to destroy trash weapons with bare hands. System: endurance has reached 20 points. Activating hidden basic skill, robust physique. Along with the activation of the hidden basic skills for strength and endurance, Shifeng could now utilize the full potential of his current body. He was no longer a 3-second hero. Although he was level 0, his current attack power and attributes were far above that of when he was level 3. His HP was even more awesome. It wasn't any worse than a level 5 shield warrior's HP. Not to mention Shifeng still had a bunch of high-level skills. He could definitely fight it out with the kobold chieftain. While Shifeng was getting used to his body, Blackie had cleared all of the kobolds in the surrounding areas, leaving behind only the kobold chieftain. Wait for me to pull aggro, then you can start madly attacking. Shifeng instructed. Taking a step forward, Shifeng rushed towards the kobold chieftain. Wind blade. In the blink of an eye, Shifeng had arrived in front of the kobold chieftain. The kobold chieftain had yet to react before 2 streaks of black light slashed at its neck. Suddenly, blood splashed from its neck, causing the kobold chieftain to scream in pain. 2 frightening damages appeared above its head. -63-128. The kobold chieftain finally reacted. However, just as it lifted its giant axe, another sword flash passed through an unprotected area of its body. Chop. Another -105 damage appeared on the kobold chieftain. The power of a level 4 chop was shocking. When the giant axe landed on the ground, it created a large crater. However, Shifeng had long since retreated and followed up by using a level 4 thundering flash. 3 streaks of violent thunder passed through the kobold chieftain's gigantic body, creating damages of -84, -101, -123. Shifeng had taken over 600 HP away from the kobold chieftain after just a single exchange. The might of the famed sword, the abyssal blade, even shocked Shifeng himself. Blackie, who stood a distance away, was even more dumbfounded. Chapter 18: 9 Dragons Slash. Chapter 18: 9 Dragons Slash. The kobold chieftain became enraged when he was dealt the heavy damage by Shifeng's surprise attack. The blood that leaked from its wound became its stimulant. The kobold chieftain raised its giant axe, bombarding Shifeng with one attack after another. The kobold chieftain could not react appropriately towards Shifeng's previous surprise attack. It could only instinctively attack, so its attacks were aggressive. Against the wild attacks of the kobold chieftain, even a level 5 shield warrior or guardian knight would die within an instant. Shifeng could only retreat under such intense attacks. He did not have any chance to retaliate. He also needed to dodge the incoming rubble the size of fists. If they hit him, it would cause quite an amount of damage. A man and a beast exchanged moves at high speeds. If it were an average man, he most likely would not be able to make a single move. He would be halved by the giant axe, becoming very much dead. Blackie, hurry and attack it. I can't hold on for much longer. Shifeng had been dodging for a whole 7 or 8 seconds now. When he saw Blackie, having yet to attack, he shouted loudly. They were currently facing a chieftain boss, not a little elite. The attack patterns of a chieftain boss were not as monotonous as an elite's, it had a variety of attacks. The chieftain boss was a monster that possessed intelligence. It would even change its attack pattern for specific players. Couple that with a strength that was 2 to 3 times that of a normal elite, the chieftain boss was stronger than an elite by at least 4 times. Although Shifeng had only exchanged blows with the kobold chieftain for 7 or 8 seconds, it felt like several minutes had gone by. Just from blocking attacks and the occasional counterattack had already taken over 100 HP from Shifeng. If this situation continued, it wouldn't be long before his HP reached 0. With the famed sword, Abyssal Blade, Shifeng's attributes were greatly increased. It allowed 3 hidden basic skills that were most important to a melee player to be activated. With these skills, Shifeng was able to exhibit extraordinary attacks and dodges continuously. If he did not possess the Abyssal Blade, Shifeng would have died long ago. "Ah, I'll come help you, Brother Feng." Blackie realized his mistake as he finally reacted. He hurriedly waved his staff, his mouth chanting a curse. After aiming at the kobold chieftain, he shot a dark arrow. The dark arrow landed on the kobold chieftain's body, only dealing 17 points of damage. Blackie's mouth became wide open after seeing this damage. He couldn't help becoming astonished by a chieftain monster's defense. Blackie could cause over 50 damage if he attacked a level 5 monster, however, it was only a third of that amount now. It could be seen how shocking a chieftain monster's defense was. On the other hand, Shifeng could deal over 100 damage in a hit. What kind of attack power was that? Shifeng abruptly slashed the Abyssal Blade in mid-battle. Chop! A black light dug itself through a gap in the kobold chieftain's attack. Peng! Shifeng took 3 steps backward before stabilizing his body, over 30 damage appearing above his head. On the other hand, only the kobold chieftain's giant axe was pushed back, pausing slightly in midair. It worked. It seems like my strength is just barely enough. Shifeng was very satisfied with the attack this time. During battles within God's domain, not only could players defend and dodge, but they could also interrupt a monster's attack. This would cause the monster's attack to stop briefly, ending the monster's offensive. It was a high-leveled battle technique. Such techniques only started becoming popular half a year after God's domain's opening, especially in boss battles. If the MT, main tank, did not learn such techniques, the end result would be a party wipe. This was because there were no players capable of blocking a boss-crazed and continuous attacks. The kobold chieftain's momentary pause had caused it to reveal a weak point. Shifeng rushed in without hesitation. Gathering all his strength into his hand, Shifeng gripped the Abyssal Blade tightly and continuously struck the kobold chieftain. 4 streaks of sword light hit the unarmored parts of the kobold chieftain. With the damage amplification effect, Shifeng's attack instantly took to 300 HP away from the kobold chieftain. Adding in Blackie's attack, the kobold chieftain only had little over 900 HP remaining. Ayo! 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 The kobold chieftain started going into a frenzy. It threw its giant axe to a side, pulling out 2 machetes from its waist. The change in weapons caused the kobold chieftain's attack patterns to change. If the kobold chieftain was a berserker when he held the giant axe, then after wielding the pair of blades, the kobold chieftain was a dual-wielding swordsman. The kobold chieftain now combined strength with agility, no longer just using violence to oppress its opponent. The attack pattern of the pair of blades was no longer monotonous. The kobold chieftain's attack speed had a large increase as well. Just after Shifeng dodged one of the blades, the other came following behind. Shifeng hurriedly used the Abyssal Blade to block it. Dazzling sparks were created when the blade and sword intersected with each other. Shifeng's entire person was sent flying away. When Shifeng was still in midair, he saw the kobold chieftain leaping with all its might, its machete raised high for a frontal assault. Is it going all out? Shifeng was shocked, hurriedly using parry. Hong. The Abyssal Blade blocked the machete. However, Shifeng was like a meteorite as he fell heavily to the ground. Shifeng had thought the kobold chieftain's attack to be over. However, as it fell from the sky, its twin blades plunged downwards as well, with Shifeng's chest as their target. Shifeng was unable to move to dodge the attack. Phantom kill. Instantly, a doppelganger of Shifeng appeared 3 yards away from him. With lightning speed, Shifeng swapped places with his doppelganger. When the kobold chieftain landed, both its blades stabbed into the doppelganger's chest. The doppelganger's HP madly fell, over 300 HP disappearing within an instant. Just as the kobold chieftain revealed an excited smile, Shifeng appeared behind its back. The abyssal blade in his hand was also letting out a faint black glow. 9 dragons / 9 phantoms of the abyssal blade appeared, silently floating in midair and circling Shifeng. Although Shifeng could not completely control all 9 swords, using the 9 of them for a simple attack was not a problem. Shashasha. 9 abyssal blades danced as if they were playful sprites, continuously penetrating the kobold chieftain's body. Small values that were just over -10 continuously appeared on the kobold chieftain's head. Although the damage was very low, the quantity was high. Including Shifeng's chop and normal attacks, the kobold chieftain's HP fell close to 500 HP. Seeing the kobold chieftain wanting to turn around, Shifeng did not dare give it any chance for a counterattack. Immediately, Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. The kobold chieftain could not move for 3 seconds, and its defense was reduced by 100%. In a battle, where even blinking would get you killed, 3 seconds was enough to change the results. The kobold chieftain could not move after being bound by the pitch-black chains which came from the abyssal blade. The 9 abyssal blades continued attacking without stop, creating damages of over -20 with each hit. The kobold chieftain's HP madly fell, leaving it with only around 200 HP within a moment. Awoo! The kobold chieftain bellowed as it became thoroughly berserk, its body size becoming 2-folds larger. Shifeng watched as the 3 seconds passed by. The kobold chieftain's strength was no joke after becoming completely berserk. Its strength had increased by at least 30%. However, all of Shifeng's attacks and life-saving skills were still on cooldown. As if having seen through Shifeng's distress, the kobold chieftain's face revealed a mocking expression. 2 large blades came crashing towards Shifeng, their speeds like that of flying arrows. At the moment of life and death, Shifeng noticed a kobold miner respawning from the corner of his eyes. Immediately, Shifeng activated gravity liberation, followed by wind blade. With lightning speed, Shifeng dodged the chop from the twin blades and rushed towards the kobold miner's front. Ayo! 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 When the kobold chieftain saw the near-death Shifeng actually dodging its attack, its strong legs abruptly stomped on the ground, pushing it straight towards Shifeng. Blackie felt chills down his back as he watched Shifeng fighting. Regardless, his mouth never stopped chanting curses, sending out one dark arrow after another. However, the kobold chieftain's speed was too fast, trying to hit it was just too hard. Fortunately, there was more than a 20-yard distance between the kobold chieftain and Shifeng. The kobold chieftain would still need some time to catch up to Shifeng. Within this period, Shifeng might even be able to kill off the kobold chieftain with the 9 phantoms of the abyssal blade. However, both Shifeng and Blackie had underestimated the kobold chieftain's explosive strength. Not only were its strength and defense greatly increased, even its agility had a great increase. It only took 2 seconds for the kobold chieftain to reach over 20 yards. The kobold chieftain lifted its twin blades, strongly slashing it down. The kobold miner in front of Shifeng was split into 2, and a rain of blood fell 5 yards around it. This slash had closely brushed past Shifeng's cheek, nearly taking his life away. Seeing the kobold chieftain preparing to slash down its other blade, Shifeng strongly raised the abyssal blade in his hand. 3 streaks of thunder penetrated the kobold chieftain's body, taking away its last remaining 130 HP. Seeing the kobold chieftain finally fall, Shifeng let loose a breath of relief. The chieftain monster is truly too strong. Even if Shifeng came here at level 5 fully equipped with bronze equipment, he would still be a goner. He could only kill it due to luck. Compared to a level 2 Thundering Flash, the level 4 Thundering Flash only had a cooldown of 24 seconds. The cooldown had finished just in time, allowing Shifeng to escape death. System: Level 5 Kobold Chieftain killed. Level difference of 5. EXP obtained increased by 500%. Obtained 2350 EXP. Shifeng immediately rose to 76% of level 1. System: Congratulations for becoming the first player to kill a chieftain monster. Kobold Chieftain's item drop increased by 200%. Reputation in Starmoon Kingdom increased by 10 points. Suddenly, the kobold chieftain's body started expanding. Its size continued increasing until its body exploded with a boom, scattering a pile of items all over the floor. Chapter 19 Evil Whip. Chapter 19 Evil Whip. When the kobold chieftain exploded, items scattered all over the floor. Copper coins paved the floor as well in a copper glow, shining through the entire mine as if celebrating Shifeng's success. At the moment, Blackie sat paralyzed on the ground, cold sweat pervading his entire body. It was as if all of his strength was sapped out from his body. He could not care less about the drops on the ground. This battle was truly difficult. There was no time to even take a breath. Every minute and every second were a soul-shocking moment that stimulated the eyes. Every moment of the battle just toyed with Blackie's heart. He would not be able to take it at all if he did not have a strong heart. As for Shifeng, who could battle against the kobold chieftain head-on, what kind of heart did he possess? This is too great. We won, Brother Feng. You really are my idol, Blackie loudly shouted in extreme excitement. Seeing Shifeng's calm face, Blackie was filled with respect for him. Although Shifeng's former strength was quite good, surpassing many average players, he was still just an average professional player. Shifeng's skill had never been out of reach for Blackie. Shifeng had been previously quick to get excited. He would even get into an endless conflict over a piece of common equipment as if he was an unsheathed blade. However, the current Shifeng was hugely different than before. It was as if he became a different person. The present Shifeng was extremely calm and did things without hesitation. He gave off a certain serenity that resembled that of a dormant dragon. He did not do anything outstanding normally, yet when he did, it would shock the world. Blackie, wasn't your idol Gentle Snow? Shifeng slightly smiled as he said so. Of course Gentle Snow is my idol. However, you're awesome as well, Brother Feng. Usually, you keep quiet without revealing anything, but now that you've shown it, even such a powerful kobold chieftain was done in by you. Not even a true professional gamer could compare to you, so how could I not admire you? As they said, the shade is better under a large tree. Brother Feng, you should teach me how to play a Cursemancer. Even in my dreams, I've dreamt of becoming a professional gamer. In Blackie's eyes, Shifeng was just like a mountain of gold. He was glad for the choice he had previously made. If he had gone to Shadow Workshop, he would probably still be a nameless gold farming member. He wouldn't even have the chance to meet an expert. Forget about becoming a real expert. All right. Shifeng smiled. Blackie's character was just so straightforward. When Shifeng was fired in his previous life, Blackie had resigned as well, without hesitation. Blackie had given up a job with an annual income of millions just to share the suffering together with him. Naturally, Shifeng wouldn't betray Blackie. He would teach Blackie whatever he could. Although Shifeng had not played a Cursemancer before, he had still observed plenty of expert Cursemancers. Shifeng knew the general direction to develop a Cursemancer, and it was more than enough to give pointers to Blackie. Brother Feng, how do you think I should place my points early on? Do I go full intelligence? Blackie asked. Shifeng shook his head, saying after some thought, although it isn't bad to go full intelligence during the beginning periods, agility is a must if you wish to become a powerful Cursemancer. Aside from just increasing your movement speed, agility can also increase your casting speed. Cursemancers have very few life-saving skills, are slow runners, and have many skills that require chanting. A Cursemancer's spells are also weak in power. They mainly rely on curses to deal damage. However, unlike elementalists, who are literal cannons, time is required for a Cursemancer to unleash that damage fully. Hence, after adding intelligence up to 20 points, you should place half of your free ability points into agility. This will ensure your safety as well as allow you deal more damage. In Shifeng's previous life, there was an extremely powerful Cursemancer. That person had broken the traditional point allocation method of a Cursemancer by adding a large amount of agility. Not only could he deal damage both quickly and fiercely, but he was even more powerful in PK. He had destroyed assassins that were counters to mags. Even in death, those assassins had not landed a single hit on that Cursemancer, breaking the law that stated mags would die if they were closed in by a melee player. After that incident, many cursemances had started adding agility, causing assassins to be endlessly depressed as they became bullied constantly by cursemances. Blackie nodded his head. He felt that Shifeng's words made sense, saying with a smile, "All right then. After my intelligence reaches 20 points, I'll go full agility." After finished discussing how to add points for a cursemancer, Shifeng and Blackie started picking up the drops. The kobold chieftain deserved to be a chieftain-ranked monster. Adding on that it was the first kill, its drops were extremely bountiful. It had dropped a total of 8 pieces of bronze equipment, 1 grey giant axe, 2 plate armor, 2 leather armor, 3 cloth armor. Aside from those, there were also 273 coppers and 3 skill books. There was mock for shield warriors, silent steps for assassins, and evil whip for cursemances. Blackie, your luck really is too good. This evil whip skill book is rare with an extremely low drop rate. It is also one of the few control and damage skills that a cursemancer has. As long as the skills level is high, it will become a godly skill for grinding monsters. Shifeng tossed the evil whip skill book to Blackie without hesitation. He also gave 2 of the level 2 cloth armor to Blackie. Evil whip. Cast time 3 seconds. Use 5 thorns to bind a target in a fixed area. As long as the target exits the area and breaks the thorns, every thorn will cause a base damage of 20 points, with an additional 30% spell damage. Cooldown, 20 seconds. Blackie became ecstatic when he saw the skill, learning it quickly. With this skill, his battle standards would be increased by a big leap. After he switched to the 2 pieces of equipment, it was as if he turned from an airgun into an artillery cannon. Blackie's intelligence increased to 20 points, increasing his spell damage to 48, and also activating the hidden basic skill for intelligence, Rapid Cast. Rapid Cast allows the player to skip the chance of spells that are below 1.5 seconds, requiring only action to cast it. Also, allows the caster to better focus on attacking their target. As for the 2 pieces of plate armor, they were the recruit's heavy armor and black steel armguard. However, amongst these pieces of bronze equipment, Shifeng only fancied the black steel armguard's attributes. Black steel armguard, bronze rank, plate armor. Level 3. Equipment requirements, strength 9. Defense plus 14. Strength plus 2, endurance plus 2, agility plus 1. Durability 20/20ths. The recruit's heavy armor was just mediocre. The level 5 recruit's heavy armor could not compare to the sky armor at all. However, plate armors were still precious, so it could be sold for a good price. The 2 pieces of level 3 bronze leather armor could be sold as well. Amongst these pieces of equipment, the most valuable one was the grey giant axe. It was definitely the darling of berserkers. Grey giant axe, bronze rank. Level 5. Equipment requirements, strength 15. Attack power plus 21. Strength plus 5, endurance plus 2. Durability 30/30ths. It was the absolute weapon for violence. If a berserker got a hold of this weapon, their damage would become extremely violent and horrifying. If I could create a hype over this grey giant axe, it would definitely be worth a lot of money. Shifeng slightly smiled. He had a plan in his heart to make a load of money using the grey giant axe. Afterward, Shifeng and Blackie returned to the smithy. "Master Jack, I've killed the kobold chieftain. This is its skull," Shifeng said respectfully as he took out a kobold skull. Master Jack, who was currently hammering away on steel, glanced at the kobold skull. After he confirmed that Shifeng had done it, he satisfyingly said, "Not bad, young man. It seems you do have the right to inherit my forging skills." System: Hidden quest road of forging completed. Player has learned forging. Player has become a basic forging apprentice. Player has obtained the forging talent, Forging Genius. Rewarding 10 pieces of 100 refinement steel. Forging Genius. After a successful forging, there is a fixed chance to increase 2 proficiency points. 2 proficiency points were not to be looked down on. It should be known that a basic forging apprentice making a piece of common equipment only had a 20% success rate. After successfully making the equipment, there was a 40% chance to obtain 1 proficiency point. Now, however, Shifeng had a chance to obtain 2 proficiency points as long as his forging was successful, increasing his efficiency for promotion to the next rank by several folds. Becoming an intermediate forging apprentice required 1,000 proficiency points. An average player required more than 10 days, at the very least, to become one. Their supply of materials must also be continuous, as the horrifying rate of failure would waste large amounts of materials. With the forging talent, Shifeng could now save a lot of materials, saving him quite the amount of money. On the other hand, 100 refinement steel was a good support material for making bronze equipment. It could increase the success rate of making a bronze equipment by 10%. With the forging talent and book of forging, Shifeng couldn't help but wish to start forging equipment immediately. However, he needed materials if he wanted to forge equipment, and in a large amount as well. If he were to collect the materials himself, it would waste too much time. He could only purchase them in bulk. However, that required a lot of money. Not only that, making common equipment would not earn him any money, but instead cause him to lose it. Only bronze equipment could be sold for a good price, but that required forging designs that Shifeng did not have. Deathly Forest is a must-go. Shifeng thought about the bronze equipment forging design that could be obtained from within the Deathly Forest. The equipment that could be forged using the forging design was both cheap to make and had very good attributes. In his previous life, there were quite a few forgers who became rich because of that design. Just as Shifeng turned around to leave, "Young man, you truly make me look differently at you. Even after so many years of forging weapons, it is still my first time seeing a magic weapon." Master Jack called out to Shifeng. He had sent his gaze towards the pitch-black sword hanging around Shifeng's waist. Even if the black sword was rusty and looked like a fire poker, it could not escape the eyes of a master forger. Chapter 20 – Curse of the Abyssal Blade. Chapter 20 – Curse of the Abyssal Blade. Shifeng was surprised when Master Jack stopped him. "Young man, are you willing to let me have a look at this sword?" Master Jack looked at Shifeng with eyes filled with a burning desire. His tone was no longer indifferent, but instead a little whispered. Shifeng was at a loss at Master Jack's sudden initiative request. However, it seemed logical after Shifeng gave it some thought. The preciousness of a magic weapon, not to mention a famed sword forged by a master smith, went without saying. A famed sword was the lifelong pursuit of every master forger. They would definitely want to experience it after seeing one. Seeing Shifeng hesitating, Master Jack quickly said, "You can be at ease. I only wish to see it, and I won't let it be for nothing. If you have any requests, do mention them." When Shifeng heard this sentence, he became extremely excited. This was a master forger. Just by simply forging, he could create a piece of equipment of mysterious iron rank, secret silver rank even. His request was just to have a look at Shifeng's sword. Shifeng agreed without hesitation. He passed the abyssal blade over to Master Jack. NPCs couldn't steal items from players, so he was completely unworried whether or not Master Jack would do away with the abyssal blade. He would allow Master Jack to look at it however he wished afterward. Shifeng would ask for a secret silver one-handed sword. By then, he would be able to fully display a swordsman's true strength. Master Jack held the abyssal blade that looked like a fire poker, both praising the delicateness of the blade and marveling at its strength. After looking at it for over 10 minutes, Master Jack unwillingly returned the abyssal blade to Shifeng. "Young man, this is a good and infinitely powerful sword. However, the curse on this sword is extremely evil. The more you unleash the power of this sword, the stronger the curse will get. At the very end, its wielder will become trapped in the endless abyss. It will be too difficult if you wish to control this sword with your strength, and the curse will easily devour you," Master Jack earnestly cautioned. Shifeng knew about this point. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hesitated for such a long time before binding the abyssal blade. "Master Jack, do you perhaps have any methods to weaken the curse?" Shifeng asked. Although he knew some weakening methods, he did not have the ability to carry them out right now. "Young man, you should know that the master smith Ulysses forged this sword. There is only one of it in God's domain, and only one of the other 35 famed swords could match up to it. Many unimaginably terrifying existences were killed in order for these famed swords to possess unparalleled power. After death, these existences were sealed into each sword by master smiths. It was impossible to suppress these swords without extremely great power. Master Jack's tone was filled with unparalleled reverence, but he immediately smiled and said, "However, it isn't that there is no way to weaken the curse." "May I ask what kind of method is there?" Shifeng quickly asked. "If you wish to suppress a great power, you would need an equally great power to do so. The power sealed within the sword is a curse. If you wish to weaken it, you will need to have sufficiently great luck." Master Jack lamented, "In the continent of God's domain, some stones have gathered the luck of God's domain. These stones are named lucky stones. As long as you have a lucky stone, then you could counterbalance the curse. Although this piece of stone could be found throughout the whole continent, there are only a very few people who could obtain it. Even I have not seen it before. Trying to find one is truly too difficult. If you can find a piece of this stone, then I can help you weaken the curse on your sword." Seeing Shifeng's slack expression, Master Jack shook his head in consolation, saying, "Young man, you have to know that the lucky stone is extremely rare. You shouldn't feel discouraged. It is normal not being able to find one. Only those who are blessed by God can obtain a lucky stone, and they are people that we cannot compare to. Master Jack, is it this piece of stone?" Shifeng slightly smiled as he took out the dark green-colored star crystal. "Right, this is a lucky stone." Master Jack nodded his head after seeing the dark green-colored star crystal. However, he became stunned a moment later. He was looking at Shifeng as if he were looking at a monster. Shifeng shrugged his shoulders, indicating that it was nothing. Shifeng had been sluggish before because he found out that Master Jack was able to use the lucky stone to suppress the abyssal blade. It should be known that there was quite a few master forgers in the Star Moon Kingdom. However, the number of master forgers capable of using a lucky stone to suppress the curse of a magic weapon could be counted on a single hand. Shifeng had never thought that the Master Jack in front of him would be one of them. "Master Jack, can you weaken the curse now?" Shifeng asked with anticipation. After a few moments, Master Jack finally recovered to his previous calmness. Pretending to be indifferent, he said, "Okay, no problem. I can finish it within half an hour." To the side, Blackie held onto his stomach as he tried his best not to laugh. However, Master Jack's stupefied expression was truly too much for Blackie. He had to run off into the forest before laughing loudly. Half an hour later, Shifeng received the abyssal blade. He discovered some changes to the abyssal blade's introduction. The abyssal blade was personally created by Master Smith Olysses, using the Black Dragon King's fangs as material. It is one of 36 famed swords, and it is ranked 31st. However, this sword has been cursed by the Black Dragon King. Aside from being able to provide the wielder with immense strength, there will be a backlash every so often. However, after being remodeled by Jack using a star crystal, the strength of the backlash has been greatly reduced. If the wielder is unable to suppress the backlash, then the wielder will receive the curse of the Black Dragon King, permanently reducing all attributes by 50%. Shifeng's heart relaxed by a lot after seeing the description in this paragraph of words. At the very least, the backlash won't be too powerful in a short period of time. Shifeng stored away the abyssal blade. Suddenly, he noticed a lot of messages that had been sent by Lonely Snow. All of the messages asked why Shifeng had yet to arrive, and how much longer would he need to reach the Deathly Forest. "Blackie, let's go dive into a dungeon." Shifeng sent a reply message stating that he would come immediately. Because of the issue with the abyssal blade, Shifeng had completely forgotten about the appointed time. He let Lonely Snow wait more than half an hour. However, Shifeng would make the appropriate compensations within the Deathly Forest. "Okay. I was just worrying that I won't have a chance to try out my new spells," Blackie said excitedly. When Shifeng and Blackie arrived at the dungeon area of the Deathly Forest, the entire Deathly Forest was filled with people. Level 2 players were everywhere, and many players were forming parties to enter the dungeon. Open party for Deathly Forest, welcoming violent damage dealers, 4 waiting for 2. Effective party for Deathly Forest, we are just missing a powerful healer, guaranteed to clear. Seeing such a scene, Shifeng shook his head slightly. He walked towards Lonely Snow, who was waving his arm. In Shifeng's previous life, the players had been stuck at the Deathly Forest for a long time. The dungeon was only cleared when the majority of players were level 5. Brother Expert, you're finally here. Those friends of mine are already becoming impatient from waiting. Let us hurry. Lonely Snow was burning with anxiety when he saw Shifeng leisurely walking over. Afterward, Lonely Snow brought Shifeng and Blackie to the gathering point of the party. Lonely, this is the expert you said? I thought he was a person with 3 heads and 6 arms, but it seems he's nothing more than this. The male cleric, Wordless Summer Night, saw Shifeng wearing novice equipment. There was also a fire poker that hung around his waist. It looked as if it was some trash weapon he had randomly picked up. When Wordless Summer Night saw this, he couldn't help but ridicule. Brother Wordless, how could you say such things about Brother Expert? He is a dignified beta tester, so he definitely must have something extraordinary. Otherwise, how would he dare to take all equipment for swordsman and cursemancer? The shield warrior, Battle to the End, stood to the side and sneered. The two of them had already felt displeasure for Shifeng. This was because Shifeng had wanted to take away all plate armor and mage equipment immediately after joining. Wouldn't they just be working away for nothing? If it were not for their boss wanting to have a look at Shifeng, they would have long since invited other players and dove into the dungeon. Now that they saw Shifeng in such poor equipment, they could criticize him and force him to leave. Lonely Snow wanted to retort as Shifeng was someone he had personally invited. However, Shifeng's equipment did not give Lonely Snow any chance to do so. He could only stare in silence. Alright, let's party up. A lot of people have already entered the Deathly Forest. If we don't dive in, we won't have a chance at competing for the first kill. As the party's leader, the handsome male ranger, waving slowly but surely, interrupted as he said. Blackie wanted to argue back, but Shifeng stopped him. Shifeng thought nothing of the two people's ridicule. No matter what he said, he and Blackie had left them waiting for more than half an hour, so couldn't he just let them speak a few more sentences? Just as they finished partying up, the shield warrior furiously said, "Crap, this noob is just level 1. He's just here to swindle equipment. Boss, Deathly Forest is a level 2 dungeon. If we let a level 1 noob enter the dungeon, aren't we just waiting to get wiped?" Wordless Summer Night looked towards the ranger, waving slowly, showing his displeasure. Lonely Snow was equally shocked when he saw Shifeng's level. It should be known that many players had already risen to level 2. How was it possible for a beta tester not to reach level 2? Boss waving slowly looked towards Shifeng. Before this, he still had some hope for Shifeng, but now it was all gone. He suddenly said in a cold tone, "Did you die once before this?" "Nope." Shifeng shook his head, honestly saying, "However, entering Deathly Forest at level 1 is enough. Then you can go now. We don't need such an expert like you here. We hope you can understand." Waving slowly coldly said, his brows slightly wrinkled. "Boss, this must be a misunderstanding. How about we try it out first?" Lonely Snow explained. "Try it out?" Wordless Summer coldly laughed. "Then who will be responsible when we die? You should know that we still lose experience if we die in a dungeon. Although it is low, that is still 10%. Can this noob repay such a loss?" Wordless, don't make it hard for Lonely. Waving slowly repeatedly said, "Lonely, I know you are trying to cover for this swordsman, but I have to take responsibility for our party. I will only find veterans to enter the dungeon. I will not waste time partying up with a novice. You have 2 choices now, 1 is to follow us into the dungeon, 2 is to leave the party together with them." "I will leave the party." Shifeng did not want to embarrass Lonely Snow. He immediately left the party, turning to leave. "Blackie, we'll party up with other people and enter the dungeon." "Alright." Blackie smiled with a hee-hee, leaving the party without a second thought. Humph, humph. The expert's identity has been seen through. At least he has some self-awareness to leave after knowing he can't swindle equipment anymore. The shield warrior grinned and jeered. "Lonely, You really are gullible. Such a noob would trick only you. You need to learn properly from boss waving slowly in the future. Lonely Snow's face turned livid after hearing this. However, he did not feel that he was mistaken. Shifeng was definitely an expert. Boss waving slowly, sorry for this. Lonely Snow chose to leave the party. He was prepared to join Shifeng in order to determine whether or not his judgment was correct. You. Waving slowly was immediately stunned. He never thought Lonely Snow would be so decisive. It was simply a foolish decision. He would have long since chased Lonely Snow away if it wasn't because he had good techniques. Wordless Summer Night looked towards Lonely Snow, saying with a cold smile, "Lonely, you better not regret the choice you made. You'll regret when we clear the Deathly Forest and obtain great equipment. You'll regret it for 10 years, 20 years that you didn't follow boss waving slowly." Chapter 21, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Chapter 21, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Being said in such a way by Wordless Summer, Lonely Snow did not give any rebuttals. He only lowered his head and left, chasing after Shifeng. Waving slowly squinted his eyes. When he thought about Shifeng equipped in a body of trash equipment, he could not understand what methods Shifeng had used to cause Lonely Snow to follow him. Lonely Snow had even given up on the clearing Deathly Forest. "Boss, let's ignore that foolish Lonely Snow. At worst, we'll start looking for people again. There are plenty of level 2 players now," Battle to the End said in disdain as he watched Lonely Snow. Waving slowly nodded his head. Lonely Snow's leaving did not cause any loss to their party. As for Shifeng creating a party to dive into the Deathly Forest, not to mention clearing the dungeon, nobody would go in with a level 1 player. In front of the Deathly Forest's entrance, Shifeng and Blackie continuously shouted to recruit people. "Open party for Deathly Forest, no rigid requirements, okay as long as you're a veteran gamer. 2 waiting for 4. Shifeng shouted. When everyone heard of it, many level 2 players had run over. It was because Shifeng's requirements were very low. Many small parties would choose people based on equipment quality. They needed a few pieces of common equipment to pass. However, who would have that many pieces of common equipment in the early periods of the game? Party me, I'm already a level 2 cleric. Party me, I'm a level 2 shield warrior. I also have a piece of level 1 common plate armor armguard." In just a moment, Shifeng had invited 4 people. These 4 people were quite happy originally. There were over 10 people currently present, but only they were chosen. However, after they saw the party leader, Shifeng's level, they left the party in rage one after another. "Fuck, it's just a noob coming to die in the Deathly Forest at level 1. If you want to enter the dungeon, enter it by yourself. I won't accompany you. No wonder there are no requirements for the party. Want us to give you a ride? Not a chance." The 4 people were extremely enraged, and the voices they made were practically roars. Every player at the Deathly Forest could hear it. Hee, even a level 1 player dares boast about entering the Deathly Forest. He just wants to tag along for experience and equipment. Lucky for me I didn't go over. There are all sorts of birds in a large forest. Who would be foolish enough to enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob? Isn't that just looking to be abused? One after another, the level 2 players laughed at Shifeng for overestimating himself and for his foolishness. "Get lost if you don't wish to party up. We're not begging you all to come." Blackie became enraged after listening to them. Shifeng's techniques had long since convinced him, yet these people were calling Shifeng a noob. Can a noob kill a level 2 rare elite when he was level 2? Can a noob kill a level 5 chieftain when he was level 0? These people were just a group of snobs and idiots. Crap, my knowledge has been widened. A level 1 noob party can be awesome. I really want to see how you 2 gather a full party. The cleric that just left the party said with a cold smile. At this moment, Lonely Snow ran over. When he saw Shifeng, he hurriedly said, "Brother expert, give me an invite. I want to enter the Deathly Forest together with you guys. I have 2 pieces of common plate armor equipment on me, defense is 24. All right." Shifeng immediately sent an invitation. Blackie never imagined that Lonely Snow would actually leave his original party and come to them. He suddenly had a good impression of Lonely Snow. Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, heartily laughing. "You have good eyes. Don't worry, following Brother Fong definitely won't be a mistake." "Nonsense, nonsense." Lonely Snow was still slightly worried within his heart. The grinding spot Fong had simply pointed him to had allowed him to rise to level 2 quickly. However, Fong himself hadn't even reached level 2, and he was still wearing very poor equipment. Lonely Snow just couldn't understand how it could be so. The spectating players by the side all became dumbfounded. There was actually someone who would enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob. This person had good equipment, at that. The brand new plate armor and boots on Lonely Snow must definitely be common equipment and not trash equipment. Although Lonely Snow had joined the party, not a single player had joined them after Fong had recruited for over 10 minutes. With just 3 of them alone, it was impossible to enter and clear the dungeon. At this moment, waving slowly but surely brought a group of people. "Hee, Brother Expert still hasn't partied anybody? We've already invited another 3 strong members. All of them have at least 2 or 3 pieces of level 1 common equipment." The cleric, Endless Summer Night, said to Fong in ridicule. Waving slowly only sent a glance towards Fong, then moved his sight towards Lonely Snow, saying, "You won't have a future if you follow him around. Before we enter the dungeon, you could still consider it over properly. I guarantee that you definitely won't suffer a loss." Afterward, Waving slowly shifted his gaze towards Blackie. Previously, all his attention had been on Fong, having ignored Blackie. Now that he took a closer look, Blackie's clothing looked brand new. Blackie was even holding a Blackwood staff. His equipment should be quite good, and he was also level 2, so his techniques should be good as well. "You're not bad as well. Why don't you join our party? You should know that we are an elite party. It's not something average players could compare to. If we're together, leveling, grinding, and dungeon diving will be easy." Waving slowly looked at Blackie with a smile. "Get lost. Trying to poach me over just based on your little party?" Blackie scolded as he pointed his Blackwood staff at Waving slowly. At the same time, he had selected to display the halo effect of the bronze equipment, saying, "It's just 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment. I have 3 bronze equipment and 2 common equipment." Waving slowly and the others were shocked. They never thought Blackie was that powerful. He actually possessed 3 pieces of bronze equipment. During this period of time, a person having 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment was considered an expert. As for having a piece of bronze equipment, that person would definitely be an expert. Every guild would fight over for that person. However, the Blackie before them actually had 3 pieces of bronze equipment. Waving Slowless party also became surprised. When they saw the halo effect of the bronze equipment, their eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. No wonder Fong behaved that boldly. Fong had nothing to fear because he had grabbed an expert's favor. Meanwhile, Lonely Snow, who stood beside Blackie, was slack-jawed. He looked at Blackie in disbelief. Lonely Snow had originally thought of Fong as a rarely seen expert. He had never imagined that Blackie was the true great expert. "Fellow brother, if you party up with such a noob and enter the dungeon, it would also be a burden on you. Not to mention failing to clear the dungeon, you might even have to die once. How about you come with us? All pieces of mage equipment from the dungeon are free for you to choose from." Although Waving slowly was enraged for being given such a slap, if he could rope over Blackie, then the chances for clearing the dungeon would become a lot greater. "I agree with your views. Joining a group of noobs such as yourselves really will be a burden to me," Blackie chuckled. "You," Waving Slowless face turned beet red, furiously saying, "Then let's see who clears the deathly forest first." Finishing his piece, Waving slowly spun around and left. He did not believe that a party with a noob in it could clear the deathly forest. Humph, he's just a powerful damage dealer entering the dungeon. Does he really think he could clear it? Wordless Summer jealously murmured. "Right. We are all veteran gamers. We are definitely stronger in dungeon diving than they are." The shield warrior curled his lips. After Waving Slowless party left, the number of people applying for Shifeng's party had also suddenly increased. Such an effect was mainly caused by the equipment that Blackie wore. At this period, bronze equipment was definitely the proof of an expert. Even if there was a noob as the party leader, an expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment could be considered as strong as 2 people. The advantage of having such an expert was definitely greater than an average party. However, Shifeng was no longer inviting people at random this time. There was a definite requirement. Such an action had caused the 4 players who had left Shifeng's party previously to regret immensely. How could they have acted on impulse? Now, Shifeng wouldn't give them a chance even if they wished to join. Just as Shifeng was fervently recruiting party members. At the southwest part of the Deathly Forest dungeon's entrance, a great disturbance suddenly appeared. Many players had run over, one after another, every one of them having excited expressions. It can't be. Meeting in such a place. Blackie's 2 eyes stared straight ahead. Shifeng was also shocked. They could even meet such an important figure in a small location like Red Leaf Town. It was just unimaginable. Could it be that Red Leaf Town was a place that had crouching tigers and hidden dragons, only Shifeng had never discovered it before? Chapter 22 Recruitment Storm. Chapter 22 Recruitment Storm. As more players started going there, Shifeng's area turned leisurely. Brother Feng, I'm not seeing things, right? Or am I dreaming right now? Blackie rubbed his eyes as he asked with uncertainty. Shifeng was speechless. With a bitter smile, he looked towards the 3-man party that caused this disturbance. The newcomer was not just anybody, she was Blackie's idol, Goddess Gentle Snow. Gentle Snow's body was covered in a suit of gorgeous silver-colored plate armor, revealing her fine and curvaceous body. Adding to her angelic beauty and snow-cold temperament, even women's hearts would be moved by her, as well as a large group of men. Even Shifeng couldn't help but admit that Gentle Snow was the most perfect woman he had seen before, be it regarding appearances, body, or temperament. There was not a single female celebrity who could match up to her. As for the 2 people on each side of Gentle Snow, Shifeng was very familiar with them as well. He had seen them before on big news channels. They were all famous experts in God's domain. One of them was also an absolute beauty named Zhao Yueru. If Gentle Snow could be said to possess a perfect body and appearance, then Zhao Yueru possessed a devilishly enticing body and appearance. Every one of her movements was like a temptation that could influence a person's heart. Adding on the fiery red robe that she wore, her body radiated a wild-like charm. Such bewildering charms had caused many men wanting to go over and assault her. If you really did such a thing, however, then congratulations. You've just earned a one-way ticket directly to hell. This was because words such as big breasts, no brains, and as delicate as a flower were not applicable to Zhao Yueru. In God's domain, she had another nickname of the Flame Witch. The reason why she held this title was that of the mountain of corpses she had piled up using these male players. There had once been a guild leader of a large guild that had tried assaulting Zhao Yueru. As a result, the guild that had over 100,000 players became no more. Zhao Yueru even hunted their guild leader. The incident only came to an end when that guild leader was killed back to level 0. From then on, the title of Flame Witch had been cast on Zhao Yueru. Compared to the Snow Goddess and Flame Witch, the priestess by their side could only be considered normal. She was not overly beautiful, her techniques were not bad, and she was also within the top 100 rankings of Star Moon Kingdom's priest leaderboard. 2 absolute beauties plus a great beauty, such a combination had created brilliant scenery in the Deathly Forest. Hundreds of players surrounded them, trying to become acquainted with the 3 women. Unfortunately, the 3 beauties did not even look at them. Sister Yueru, these people are really scary. How about we return and level up? The timid Xiao Yue whispered. Hihi, Yue, don't be afraid. With Gentle Snow here, even if you give these hateful, vulgar men 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare come over here, Zhao Yueru said with a smile, proudly sticking out her chest. Gentle Snow only nodded her head in reply. Regarding these salivating, vulgar men, she did not even place them in her eyes. Although the drops from elite monsters are not bad, the drop rate for skill books is higher at the Deathly Forest. If we don't grind for a few more skill books, we will level up very slowly in the future, Gentle Snow quietly said. Zhao Yueru nodded her head in agreement. Although the three of them had killed quite many elite monsters, the number of skill books that dropped was very little. Until now, the three of them had yet to learn even 3 skills. It was really affecting their strength utilization and grinding efficiency. Effective party for Deathly Forest, looking for a healer and MT, 3 waiting for 3. After taking a few looks, Shifeng continued shouting. Although Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru were indeed attractive, Shifeng was no longer a child. He had seen plenty of beauties, especially after he became Shadow's captain. Many beauties would willingly throw themselves at Shifeng. As for Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru, it was good enough to just look at them for pleasure. Such beauties were not something Shifeng could have thoughts about. His main goal right now was to get down to business. However, Shifeng's shouting did not yield any replies. Not a single player had even glanced at him. All of them were staring and salivating at Gentle Snow's group of 3. Even Blackie was no exception. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets from staring. Shifeng sighed, helplessly shaking his head, and continued shouting and recruiting people. Crap, what is this fool blabbering about? Do you really think anybody would commit suicide together with you in the dungeon? Quickly scram, you level 1 noob. Stop distracting me from looking at beauties. Quite a few players started to express their discontentment. 2 high-quality beauties had already shown up, yet instead of trying to get closer to them, Shifeng was actually making noise here. What would you do if those beauties were scared off? That person is interesting. He can actually attract the hostility of so many people. Did he do something immoral before? Xiao Yue revealed a crescent moon-like smile, giggling as she pointed at Shifeng. Zhao Yueru aimed her eyes over as well. She felt nothing special from Shifeng. He was even dressed in tattered clothing. Zhao Yueru felt that Shifeng was just trying to seek attention from the crowd. She suddenly said in disdain, "He is definitely doing so to grab our attention. Let's not bother with him and quickly party up 3 people to dive the dungeon." Regarding the number of men who had tried to attract their attention, there were just too many of them. Zhao Yueru had seen all kinds of methods these men had used before, and Shifeng's method was not a rare sight at all, but instead outdated. Gentle Snow did not voice out any opinions, only taking a look at Shifeng. She felt an odd feeling coming from Shifeng. This was the spirit of a hidden sword. Gentle Snow was especially concerned about the fire poker hanging around Shifeng's waist. Gentle Snow, what happened to you? Zhao Yueru curiously looked at Gentle Snow. She did not understand why Gentle Snow would keep staring at the extremely ordinary Shifeng. It's nothing. Maybe it's just my imagination. We should hurry up and recruit some people to dive the dungeon. Gentle Snow shook her head, no longer looking at the fire poker at Shifeng's waist. Originally, Shifeng's party already had trouble recruiting for people. However, because of Zhao Yueru's single sentence, nobody else had paid attention to Shifeng's party, even if his party had an expert present. Shifeng expressed his helplessness when seeing the hundreds of players queuing up in front of Zhao Yueru. The 3 women's arrival had really bad timing. Brother Feng, why don't we go over there as well? Blackie shamelessly suggested. Scram. What do you take me for? Shifeng rolled his eyes at Blackie. This fellow was just too shameless, forgetting friendship after finding love. Instead, Lonely Snow was the better one. He was a truly honest man. In the beginning, Lonely Snow had only taken a few glances but stopped after giving out a few praises. He had even helped Shifeng in recruiting people by his side. Blackie did not dare to speak again after being scolded by Shifeng. He could only silently look on in envy at those players in the queue. Over 10 minutes later, Shifeng still had not recruited a single person. Similarly, Gentle Snow's party had also not recruited a single person. However, in Shifeng's case, it was because nobody had come to join his party. Whereas for Gentle Snow's party, it was because the players that wanted to join did not match up to their specifications. One party was in heaven, while the other was on earth. Shifeng had no more choices. He could not just continue dragging on in such a way, his time was precious. He could only make exceptions in recruiting. Efficient party for Deathly Forest, we have an expert leading the party, clear in one try, no limit to levels, looking for healers and damage dealers, 3 waiting for 3. However, Shifeng's words had caused many players to send over looks of disdain. Even if you were trying to attract attention, you should have a lower line. Currently, there had already been tens of level 2 players who had died out of the dungeon. Every one of them had said the Deathly Forest was impossible to clear. On the other hand, Shifeng said his party had no level limits. Then wasn't he trying to say that he only needed one person to clear the Deathly Forest? Was this possible? However, Shifeng's lower line had still attracted some players' attention. Within a few moments, a group of level 1 players had come running over to join. Chapter 23, Tyrant Bear. Chapter 23, Tyrant Bear. Tens of level 1 players came running over. The area in front of Shifeng's party had also started becoming lively. This person is really something. He is so desperate to enter the dungeon that he would even want level 1 noobs. Did he not know that there has already been a level 2 elite party that had returned after dying? Who cares about him? A noob is a noob after all. We won't be able to understand their thoughts. The long queue of level 2 players started laughing one after another at Shifeng's actions. They all wanted to watch Shifeng become a joke. Those guys are really interesting. Even I don't have much confidence in clearing the Deathly Forest, yet they actually want to clear it with a group of level 1 players. Zhao Yueru's lips curled up slightly, revealing an exuberant smile as she looked in Shifeng's direction. Her voice carried a hint of ridicule and disdain. Gentle Snow also sent a glance towards Shifeng from a distance. Shifeng's temperament was both calm and confident. He did not become angry from being laughed at. Every one of his movements was very mature, not much different from the experts in God's domain she had seen before. However, she did not understand from where Shifeng's confidence came. Deathly Forest was Red Leaf Town's first dungeon, and it was also everyone's first time being in touch with a dungeon in God's domain. Their difficulties were an unknown. Even the elite parties of guilds would carefully choose their members before entering the dungeon. On the other hand, Shifeng did not care in the slightest, as if just gathering 6 players was good enough. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. He's just a level 1 player, so how could he clear the Deathly Forest? Gentle Snow caressed her elegant hair, her heart no longer thinking about Shifeng's odd actions. She looked at her hand, at the player information displayed on it: level 2 summoner, magic attack 28, HP 150, defense 8, movement speed 4. Fail. Next. Afterward, another cursemancer stepped forward. The person tensely sent his own attributes to the snow goddess, Gentle Snow. On the other side, Shifeng as well was looking at player data. Although he did not have a lower line, he did have a bottom line. The equipment and levels of these level 1 players were much worse than the level 2 players that Gentle Snow's party were recruiting. However, they were still players. As long as they did not simply add their 8 free attribute points early on, the chance of clearing the Deathly Forest with a 6-man party was very high. As for those shield warriors and guardian knights who solely added strength or weapons job but did not add agility, all of them were rejected. Big brother, please party me. Although I am just a level 1 guardian knight, I have a piece of level 0 common equipment. Also, all 8 of my attribute points are still available. I can completely add them based on your requirements. A youth named Cola pleaded, his eyes filled with expectations. Shifeng was slightly surprised. A guardian knight that did not add any attribute points could actually reach level 1. It was a masterpiece. It had to be known that guardian knights had very low attack, making the killing of monsters difficult. Normally, they would party up to kill monsters. To increase grinding efficiency, they would add a few points of strength. Otherwise, leveling up would be too slow. Guardian Knight Cola? Cola. Cola. When Shifeng looked at Cola's face, and also his tall and muscular body, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Suddenly, he entered into deep thought. His memory seemed to have such a person in it. That's right. It's Tyrant Bear. Shifeng managed to remember it. Tyrant Bear's name was Kola. Tyrant Bear was the core MT of the first-rate guild, Brilliant Stars. During the early periods of God's Domain, Tyrant Bear was constantly unsuccessful. He was even kicked out by third-rate guild, Heaven's Crown. After entering Brilliant Stars, Kola suddenly started to shine. He turned from being a normal party's MT into the core elite party's MT in the guild. He was ranked 15th on the Guardian Knight leaderboard of Starmoon Kingdom. Kola was known for both being able to attack and defend. Shifeng had never thought that the Tyrant Bear would run up to him on his own. Kola was such a shy person, as well. It was totally different from the Tyrant Bear of 10 years later. Suddenly, Shifeng had an idea. Currently, the Tyrant Bear had yet to join Heaven's Crown, not to mention Brilliant Stars. If Shifeng could poach Kola over and turn Kola into his own MT, then wouldn't dungeon diving in the future be a lot easier? Big brother, I guarantee that I will absolutely listen to your commands when inside the dungeon. Please consider it over. Kola's tone carried hints of begging. Shifeng had nearly let loose a laugh. The great Tyrant Bear would actually speak in such whispered tones just for a position in the dungeon. However, Shifeng still held it in. The level 1 players that had come here all held hopes of getting lucky. The other parties that entered the Deathly Forest with level 2 players were already no good, not to mention level 1 players like them. If they could enter once into the Deathly Forest and fortunately obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, then it would be of great help to their future development. At that time, entering into a large guild would become much easier. Alright, I can add you in. Shifeng's face turned grave as he said, however, you should know that bringing a level 1 noob like you into the Deathly Forest isn't easy. I can't just carry you through the Deathly Forest, and then after you get equipment, you join some other elite parties. Wouldn't I just be striving for nothing? When Shifeng finished his speech, quite a few level 1 players had suddenly sent over looks of disdain. Weren't you also a level 1 noob? However, Shifeng did not care about what these people felt. He continued saying, I wish to form a stable party. Even if we need members, it would be with stability as the priority. If you wish to enter the dungeon, you need to be prepared for the long term. When I call you for dungeon diving, you must come. You cannot reject because you have some other matters. So, what will be your choice? When the other players heard Shifeng saying so, they suddenly turned quiet. Shifeng's intentions were very clear. If you wish to enter the party, then you won't be able to join other parties in the future, not to mention joining a guild. Everybody knew that entering a guild was the best method to increase your own strength quickly. Currently, they did not have the qualifications to join any of those guilds. So, they were here to try their luck, hoping to obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment. They might even be able to join those guilds afterward. So, how would they be able to give up their chances of entering a good guild just to enter a dungeon? Kola had also never imagined that Shifeng would give such a demand. However, it was still reasonable. You couldn't just expect other people to bring you up, then leave when you become strong. However, Shifeng lacked the persuasiveness when he said these words. At this moment, Blackie stood out and furiously said, just looking at you noobs, there is nobody that would want you down in the dungeon. And you still wish to join a guild in the future and enjoy their benefits. Are you thinking yourselves as experts, or are you taking us for idiots? Kola thought what Blackie, the expert, had said made sense. Even a level 2 expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment was in this party, whereas Kola himself was just a novice noob. So, what right did he have to complain? Many thanks for Big Brother Expert's pointers. Little Brother will definitely strive to fulfill his own role. Kola continuously thanked Blackie. Blackie felt somewhat uneasy from being thanked and referred to as an expert by Kola. Blackie was just a complete imposter of an expert. However, being called such by someone made Blackie want to become an expert in God's domain even more. Blackie, beautifully done. Shifeng stretched out a thumbs up, quietly praising Blackie. Shifeng never imagined Blackie would tame the Tyrant Bear just like that. The Tyrant Bear had also called Blackie a big brother with a face full of respect. Blackie suddenly became confused. He did not understand what he had done that was worth being praised by Chiffon. However, he was still very happy. At least he had done something for Chiffon, although he didn't know what he had done exactly. Over 10 minutes later, Chiffon finally gathered 6 players. They could start dungeon diving now. Chapter 24, Hell's Roar. Chapter 24, Hell's Roar. Although Chiffon's party was gathered, the observing level 2 players had started laughing. They were not laughing because all the players Chiffon had invited were level 1. Instead, the jobs that were in the party were just too exotic. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. This noob really is something, and even I am starting to admire him. They're simply a suicide party. I really pity that expert for actually bringing along such an exotic player. The expert had even agreed to let him be the party's leader. The queued-up level 2 players started a debate, and there were quite a few players who were holding their stomachs while laughing loudly. He is just playing to the gallery. Zhao Yueru wrinkled her brows slightly. She turned her head away after taking a look at Chiffon, her heart slightly discomforted. Before, she would be the focus of everyone wherever she went. Today, however, everyone's attention was on an inconspicuous noob like Chiffon. Although everyone was jeering at him, he was still their focal point. Alright Yueru, we should hurry and gather enough people. If we waste any more time, we will be left behind by the frontline players. Although Gentle Snow felt that Chiffon seemed to be an expert regarding levels, methods of recruiting people and such, he was just too far from being referred to as an expert. As for the notion of inviting Chiffon into their guild, it was no longer present now. Their Ouroboros only accepted experts. Got it. Zhao Yueru turned towards the swordsman in front of her. With a little vengeance, she directly said, "Data's not bad, but too bad we don't want a swordsman." The swordsman suddenly became spiritless. How could he not see what Zhao Yueru meant? Subsequently, he turned his head and glared at the distant Chiffon, his eyes filled with hatred. Meanwhile, Chiffon, who knew nothing about what has happened, was currently activating the Deathly Forest. System. Please select activation difficulty. System. Normal, hard, hell. Chiffon chose hell without hesitation. Suddenly, the transfer passage in front of the Deathly Forest changed. It changed from a silvery grey color to pitch black. At the same time, a flickering skull that had its mouth wide opened could vaguely be seen. Meanwhile, the party members of Chiffon's party all received a notification. System. You have chosen Hell mode of Deathly Forest. Death penalty increased by 100%. Suddenly, the faces of the members of the party turned deathly white. Death penalty increased by 100%. Doesn't that mean if they died within the dungeon, they would lose 20% of their EXP? 1 or 2 hours of effort were required to make up for that EXP. Brother Fong, you chose the wrong one. Aren't we going down the normal dungeon? Blackie hurriedly walked over and whispered a reminder. Nothing's wrong. It's Hell mode. What would I be doing here if it isn't to dive Hell mode? Chiffon snapped. The drop rate for forging designs was extremely low. If it was normal mode, then Werewolf Felt's drop rate was only 1%, hard mode had 5% and hell mode had 30%. Although normal mode could be cleared without limit every day, who would have so much time to do so? Meanwhile, hard mode could only be cleared 5 times a day, and the probability of the forging design to drop was also not great. As for hell mode, it could only be cleared once a day, but it was also the one that had the most hopes of dropping it. Fong. Brother Fong, what are you saying? Hell mode of the Deathly Forest? Just look at our party. It is problematic to even clear normal mode, not to mention hell mode. Blackie panicked. Before, he had already seen several elite parties that had returned after dying. According to what these people had said, the monsters in the Deathly Forest were extremely strong. Their intelligence was extremely high as well. It was impossible to beat them without reaching level 4 or 5, so they had all left after giving up. If they dove into a hell mode dungeon now, with noobs like them, that would truly be going down into hell. Relax. If I weren't certain, even I wouldn't do it. Chiffon clapped Blackie's shoulders, saying confidently with a smile. All right, let's go inside then. Shifeng led the party by entering first, followed by Blackie. Lonely Snow had also entered with a dazed head. He was prepared to tread this path to the very end. As for the remaining three, they hesitated for quite some time. We better go in. The expert has already gone inside, so what do we, level 1 noobs, still have to be reluctant for? Moreover, we're entering the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Even mentioning it would be a glory, Cola encouraged. The other two felt that it made sense and had also followed into the dungeon. Meanwhile, the area in front of Gentle Snow's party was completely silent. All of the level 2 players were stunned. They were not just shocked, but thunderstruck. A level 2 elite party couldn't even clear the normal mode, yet a party that mainly consisted of level 1 players had actually chosen the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Snow, did I see wrong? That's hell mode, right? Zhao Yueru asked. Gentle Snow nodded her head, her beautiful eyes kept staring at the flickering skull. Her expression turned extremely serious. That fellow must have abandoned himself to despair, entering hell mode after determining that he couldn't clear the normal mode. We'll see how they come out dead in a moment. Zhao Yueru laughed. We don't have that sort of time. Let's go, we've gathered enough people. Gentle Snow led the way towards the Deathly Forest dungeon. She selected normal mode for the difficulty of the dungeon. If there were no problems with normal mode, they would enter hard mode after. Within the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, there was a dark and gloomy forest. From time to time, there would be a chill wind blowing, causing a shiver down one's body. Aside from Shifeng himself, every member of his party was tightly packed around the dungeon's entrance. They did not move even an inch for fear of attracting any monsters that would wipe their party. Brother Feng, why do I keep feeling a cold wind blowing by my back? Blackie asked in worry. Blackie, you need to bring out some temperament of an expert, only then will you have the possibility to become one. It is just hell mode. Aside from the monsters here having a little bit intelligence, their battle methods being a little bit complicated, and their attack, defense, and HP are a little bit higher, there isn't much else. Oh right, there is also a little bit more monsters here. After some thought, Shifeng felt that he had nothing more to add. Suddenly, every member of the party sent looks of disdain towards Shifeng. When diving a dungeon, even a small difference in attack and HP could cause a team wipe. As for Shifeng, he had just simply explained. Moreover, what did he mean by just a little more intelligence? They had experienced before the battles with monsters in God's domain. Regarding those monsters with slightly higher intelligence, even with the same attack and HP, their strength would still be increased by 1 or 2 folds. Alright, stop minding these little matters. I'll be explaining the strategy for this dungeon in a moment, so you guys better listen carefully. If you don't follow through, then your lives will become forfeit. Shifeng waved his hands, ready to start explaining the strategy to conquer the dungeon. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from the dark and gloomy forest, causing the trees to sway madly. Ayo! 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 After the howling wind came a furious roar that resounded throughout the entire Deathly Forest. Countless birds were scared, flying off into the sky. Blackie and the others were stunned by such an imposing aura. They were just youths around the age of 20. They had never experienced any great hardships, not to mention being tempered through life or death situations. It was their first time facing such a lung-piercing roar. Compared to hearing the traditional roar of a tiger in the forest, this roar was much more shocking to the human heart. This thing is what we should pay attention to, Shifeng calmly said at this moment. The largest difference between hell mode and hard mode was this roar. Although it did not have a specific name to it, the players in Shifeng's previous life had dubbed it as Hell's Roar. Chapter 25, Night Ranger. Chapter 25, Night Ranger. Shifeng's words confused the other members. Wasn't it just a roar? What was there to pay attention to? When Shifeng looked at everyone's contemptuous expressions, he couldn't help but gravely say, "Listen well, you all. Hell's Roar is not as simple as what you think it is. In a moment, follow my demands while advancing. If anyone makes a mistake, don't blame me for immediately kicking you out of the party. Being lectured by Shifeng in such a way, the other members all became serious. Nobody wished to leave the party. In a moment, Cola and I will walk in front. Lonely Snow, you walk in the middle and protect the oracle. Blackie, you and the summoner will walk at the back. Remember, you must not break formation regardless of any activities. Without my command, nobody is allowed to be the first to attack. Do you all understand? Shifeng explained the basics of formations once to the party. The reason Shifeng had allowed the Guardian Knight, Cola, to walk in front was that he let Cola add all of his free ability points into endurance. His HP now reached 310 points. With this much HP, Cola could resist a little longer, sharing some of Shifeng's burden. The dungeons in God's Domain were unlike the dungeons in other virtual reality games. The degree of freedom within the dungeon was high, and the dungeons, themselves, were very large. There were even quite a few player parties who had wandered around in the dungeon for hours without even meeting a single boss. Although the Deathly Forest was not as large, it was still possible to become lost within the dark and gloomy forest. If someone were to become lost, Shifeng only wished to say hey. The scary part of the Deathly Forest was that players could become lost once they entered the forest. Eventually, the players would mysteriously die one after another. In Shifeng's previous life, there were countless players who had entered the forest and died over and over again in such a way without even meeting the shadow of a monster. If they had good luck and met a monster, then the result was a party wipe. Only after many experts of guilds had done it, did everyone finally understand the dreadfulness of the Deathly Forest. They had acknowledged that it was a terrifying dungeon that was impossible to clear without reaching level 5. When Shadow Guild reached level 5, they had organized hundreds of players to scout out the paths in the Deathly Forest. They had paid over hundreds of lives to finally have a clear understanding of the Deathly Forest's map. The entire Deathly Forest had 36 paths. However, only 3 of them led to the first boss, Willy. These 3 paths were paved with the lives of many players. 2 of these 3 paths were extremely dangerous. Without sufficient strength, death would be the only result. There was only one path that had very few monsters. Under Shifeng's lead, everyone walked into the forest. The moment they entered the forest, everyone discovered that there were too many pathways through the forest. They did not know which one was the right path. However, Shifeng had chosen one without hesitation. Everyone else closely followed him while being cautious of their surroundings. After walking for about 5 minutes, they met their first monster. Suddenly, everybody started to become tense. Don't act on impulse. Listen to my commands. Shifeng loudly shouted. In front of them was only a level 2 elite monster, a night rabbit. However, due to the dungeon's strengthening, its attack, defense, and HP were all greatly increased. Its HP was a whopping 700 points. Cola, you lure the monster over. Oracle, pay attention to healing. Everyone else, don't start the attack without my command. Shifeng quickly gave out orders. The Guardian Knight, Cola, gulped down a mouthful of saliva. He carefully walked towards the night rabbit's attack range. Everyone else was nervous to the extreme. Although this was only a level 2 elite, they were currently in the hell mode of a dungeon. However, everyone's nervousness was for naught. The moment the night rabbit with a person's height saw Cola, it immediately dashed over. Cola had very successfully lured the night rabbit over. Moreover, he did not panic when he lured it. He retreated while using his shield to block the night rabbit's attacks. However, even though every attack landed on the shield, the damage was still terrifying. Just a single hit dealt 42 damage. By the time Cola returned to the front of the party, his HP had already dropped by a third. The Oracle, whose name was Drowsy Sloth, had good awareness. He had given out healing the moment Cola entered his casting range. However, every heal could only add 24 HP to Cola. It was completely not enough to stop Cola's HP from falling. Brother Feng, are we still not attacking? Blackie was slightly nervous. At this moment, Cola's remaining HP did not even reach 1/3 of its total. Bringing an oracle into a dungeon was just a complete mistake. Amongst the healer jobs, oracles had the weakest healing abilities. However, since Shifeng had chosen so, Blackie could only acknowledge it. Now that their MT was close to death, it would be unacceptable if they still did not attack. Hold on. Shifeng resolutely said. Time passed bit by bit. Kola continuously used his shield to block the claw attacks of the Night Rabbit, whereas his HP continuously decreased. Kola only had 20% HP remaining, yet Shifeng had yet to give out the command to attack. Just when everyone thought that Shifeng wanted to give up on Kola, a flying arrow pierced through the forest, shooting directly for the party's oracle, Drowsy Sloth. Lonely Snow had not reacted at all as Drowsy Sloth was struck directly on his chest. A very great damage of -123 points appeared. At this moment, Shifeng shouted, Sloth, use life payment. Use the damage you received to heal Kola. Blackie, hold back the Night Rabbit to let Kola recover. Lonely, come with me. Everyone else attacks the Night Rabbit. Oracles were indeed the weakest regarding healing. However, oracles had high HP, they would not be easily one-shotted. Also, oracles had two skills when they first start out. One was life prayer, while the other was life payment. Life payment could turn the damage received by the user into a heal to be used on other players. In the early periods of the game, healers did not possess many skills or equipment. In regards to such a situation, oracles had a greater advantage over other healers when entering the Deathly Forest. It was the reason why Shifeng had given up on choosing a priest over an oracle. After finishing his piece, Shifeng rushed into the forest. Do you think I will let you run away? Shifeng coldly said as he looked at the dark shadow running through the forest. Wind blade. Shifeng turned into a phantom, chasing directly forward. The reason why Shifeng did not let anyone attack the Night Rabbit was to use Kola as bait. Shifeng wanted to lure out the Dark Hand hiding behind the scenes. Although the Night Rabbit looked terrifying, an elite party could face up to 2 or 3 of them at once without any problems. However, in Shifeng's previous life, the reason why even a level 5 elite party could be party-wiped was that of the dark shadow in front of Shifeng. This dark shadow used the Night Rabbit as bait, luring players into attacking it. The dark shadow, on the other hand, would ambush the healers from behind. As the Night Rabbit was occupying everyone else, there was no way to save the healer. In the end, everyone died. Inside the Deathly Forest, if players did not deal with this fellow, the result would be a party wipe. With the increased movement speed from Wind Blade, Shifeng quickly caught up to the dark shadow. Shifeng waved out 3 sword slashes, sealing the dark shadow's path of advance. The black shadow knew that it could not escape. It immediately turned around, unsheathing a pair of knives to block Shifeng's attack. Dang! 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 With the abyssal blade, Shifeng's strength was frighteningly high. His attacks caused the dark shadow to take 3 steps back, and each step it retreated would be followed by the damage that was over -10. In the end, the dark shadow revealed its figure under the moonlight. Night Ranger, Special Elite. Level 2. HP 1458-1500. Seeing the Night Ranger being repelled, Shifeng immediately used Abyssal Bind without giving him a chance. 9 pitch-black chains appeared to bind the Night Ranger, preventing him from moving for 3 seconds, and his defense reduced by 100%. Thundering Flash. Chop. Damages of -81, -98, -119, -124 appeared. When the 2 skills landed, a frightening amount of damage appeared, taking away a quarter of the Night Ranger's HP. No matter how capable the Night Ranger was, it could not break free from the binding of the 9 chains. He could only silently take a beating for 3 whole seconds. Shifeng was unrestrained as he sent out sword slash after sword slash, piercing through the vital point on the Night Ranger's chest. By the time the Night Ranger broke free from the bindings, his remaining HP did not exceed 700 points. Wretched human. The Night Ranger was enraged. He brandished his twin blades like a gale, engulfing Shifeng. At this moment, Lonely Snow finally caught up. A charge from him had caused the Night Ranger to enter a fainted state, at the same time breaking the Night Ranger's gale-like blade. Shifeng took the chance to slash at the Night Ranger's neck. Lonely Snow also brandished his large axe at the Night Ranger. By the time the Night Ranger had awoken, he only had a remnant of his HP left. The Night Ranger abruptly hacked his twin blades towards Lonely Snow, sending him flying backward and dealing 64 damage. The Night Ranger turned his head to stare at Shifeng, once more brandishing his twin blades and slashing horizontally towards Shifeng's neck. Dang! Shifeng used parry with his sword. Without giving the Night Ranger any chances to retaliate, Shifeng lifted up the Ranger and tossed him back. Then, Shifeng followed up with a couple of sword strikes, finishing off the Night Ranger. Shifeng conveniently picked up the 2 items that dropped, then immediately ran towards Cola's location to provide help. Laying by the side, Lonely Snow became dumbfounded after seeing Shifeng's agile skills. His heart filled with shock. Lonely Snow had even forgotten to follow Shifeng to support. There was such a way even to kill monsters. Chapter 26, Miraculous Technique. Chapter 26, Miraculous Technique. By the time Shifeng returned to the party, the elite Night Rabbit only had 1/3 of its HP remaining. Everyone had coordinated properly. Cola tanked in the front alone, while the others vigorously dealt damage. However, to control aggro, Blackie did not madly deal damage. Instead, he used Evil Whip to pin down the Night Rabbit, giving Cola some breathing space. Cola's performance was also very good. He steadily tanked the monster, and he also had good control over aggro. Cola was not at the level of a novice, but there was still a long road ahead before he became an expert. Cola, don't always try to block with your shield. It isn't a must to block an attack like the other virtual reality games. You can also dodge to avoid an attack. That way, you could reduce the stress on the healer. For everyone else, focus your attacks on the target. Don't just randomly attack, aim your attacks at the wild rabbit's claws or other weak points. That way, you can reduce a lot of burden on the MT. Shifeng did not directly go up to help Cola, but instead, he taught everyone how to battle against monsters. If everyone battled while regarding God's Domain as a traditional game, the results would be disastrous. This was because the healing given out was usually far from being able to keep up with the damage received. Some parties would bring an extra healer. However, this would result in the damage being insufficient. The result was still a party wipe. Players only slowly got used to the combat style in God's Domain several months after the game opened. The players then would no longer be as cute and simple as they were now. Shifeng wanted to cultivate everyone to build a foundation for his future workshop. So naturally, he needed to let these people learn the combat styles of God's Domain earlier. Everyone thought Shifeng was also a noob, so they held slight dissatisfaction within their hearts. The expert did not say anything, so why was a noob like him giving out commands? However, Shifeng's words made sense, so they still consciously did as Shifeng said. Cola had also started to change his battle style. He was no longer using his shield to block the attacks rigidly. Instead, he retreated a step back when the wild rabbit launched its attack, taking the chance to avoid it. Although Cola still needed to use his shield to block most of the time, it had still greatly reduced the burden on the healer. Such a change allowed killing the Night Rabbit to become even easier. The few level 1 noobs were also slightly surprised. There was some change in their opinions towards Shifeng. Shifeng was not as unbearable as they had imagined him to be. Shifeng only smiled at this situation. He did not mind their thoughts at all. Shifeng only felt that Cola was quite good after seeing his performance. Although Cola was a first-rate expert 10 years later, he currently was still far from that point. If it were an expert MT, they would not retreat, but choose to dodge the attack without even moving. Such a decision was because if the MT moved, the monster would move as well. This situation would cause trouble for long-ranged damage dealers, which would result in the loss of a lot of damage. However, such a technique required a bounty of experience in battle and a body with dexterous reactions. Cola still needed a lot of training. The elite Night Rabbit fell within a moment. It dropped a skill book for Berserkers, Whirlwind Slash. It also dropped 3 coppers. Everyone could not help but be amazed by the drop rate of Hell Mode. A skill book dropped just after they killed an elite monster. If they killed over 10 elite monsters, then wouldn't they be able to obtain over 10 skill books? It should be known that skill books were extremely rare, and even a common skill could sell for 1 silver. Shifeng naturally knew of their thoughts. However, not even Hell mode had that high of a drop rate. It was only 3 to 4 times that of hard mode. Afterward, Shifeng passed Whirlwind Slash to the stupefied Lonely Snow, then he passed a level 1 bronze defensive plate armor to Kola. The Night Ranger dropped the armor. With these items, the party's strength slightly increased. Kola's mouth could not close after receiving the defensive plate armor. He hurriedly thanked Shifeng for it. With this bronze plate armor, not only had Kola's defense increased by 14 points, but his HP had also become 350 points. Aside from Shifeng and Blackie, everyone else on the scene was filled with envy. Bronze equipment was the identification of an expert. Outside the dungeon, it was impossible to obtain a piece of bronze equipment, even if you begged for it. And this piece of equipment was obtained by Shifeng alone. Yet, Shifeng gave it to Kola without hesitation. Everyone's opinion towards Shifeng changed quite a bit. They felt such a party leader was not bad at all. Shifeng was unlike the other party leaders who would prioritize themselves when equipment dropped. As for bronze equipment, forget giving it away to a temporary party member, they would definitely keep it for themselves. Afterward, everyone followed Shifeng as they advanced. Although the dark and gloomy forest was scary, everyone was no longer as nervous as they were before going through a stimulating fight. From time to time, 1 or 2 patrolling elite night rabbits would appear in front of them, and they would also respond to it quickly. When there were 2 night rabbits, Kola would tank one of them, while Shifeng and Lonely Snow would rush over and kill the other. As for the ranged players, they would prioritize attacking the night rabbit in front of Shifeng. The night rabbit's 700 HP would be gone quickly under the fierce bombardment. Afterward, the party supported Kola and finished off the other night rabbit. Within moments, 2 night rabbits were no more. With this process, a skill book, Restore, meant for healers also dropped. The skill had a 2-second cast time. When learned by oracles, the skill could instantly restore 37 HP. It was far better than Life Prayer. It did not share the same cooldown as Life Prayer, so the two could be used in coordination to negate the damage caused by the elite night rabbits completely. Drowsy Sloth continuously thanked Shifeng and the other party members for letting him learn the skill book. Restore was an extremely important skill for conquering dungeons. If it were to be sold outside, it could go for at least 2 or 3 silver coins. Don't mind it. Skill books are meant to be used. Let's continue onward. Shifeng smiled as he answered. Aside from AoE attack skill books, healer class skill books were the most expensive and rare. However, the Deathly Forest was a dungeon meant to let players build up their foundation in God's domain. In Hell mode, the drop rate for basic healing skills was very high. In Shifeng's previous life, he had obtained 4 healing skill books just after entering Hell mode of the Deathly Forest once. It was not considered valuable. After more than an hour, Shifeng's party arrived at a flat grassland. They had finally met the first boss of the dungeon. Willy, Chieftain rank. Level 3. HP 6000. Willy was a ferocious night rabbit. Its height was as tall as 2 people, and sharp steel claws decorated its paws. These claws loved creating a feast of fresh blood, and those caught by it would be ripped to shreds, turned into a river of blood. It was unknown how many players had died a gruesome death under these claws. A short distance away from Willy, there were 7 elite night rabbits on guard. These 7 rabbits were very close to each other. As long as one of them was attacked, the other wild rabbits would rush over as well. There was also a great possibility of attracting the boss. Even if it were Shifeng, he would not be able to face off against 7 night rabbits, not to mention including a boss. However, if they did not finish off the 7 night rabbits, there was no way for them to attack the boss. Brother Feng, what should we do now? This place has too many night rabbits. The game isn't giving us any chances. Blackie was very anxious. Although the boss was in front of them, the system had dealt them such a hand. This difficulty was just too great. No wonder it was a hell mode dungeon. It was impossible to pass through without absolute strength. The system's setting also angered everyone. Who could fend off 7 elite night rabbits? Even a level 5 guardian knight would not be able to do it. You all wait for me behind that rock. Cola, get ready to receive the monster. Everyone else is not allowed to attack without my command. Shifeng pointed towards a large rock nearby. Shifeng naturally knew that there were 7 elite night rabbits here. Everyone abided by Shifeng's command without question. All the monsters they had killed on the way here relied on Shifeng's commands for success. They killed quite a lot of night rabbits, and everyone had obtained 1 or 2 pieces of bronze equipment. Blackie even had 5 pieces of bronze equipment. Their party's strength has definitely surpassed the other elite parties. The credit for such an achievement belonged to Shifeng's commands. As for Shifeng, he had run to a location that was 40 yards away from the 7 night rabbits. He quietly hid within the bushes, observing the night rabbits' every movement. Everyone understood that Shifeng was trying to lure monsters. However, the 7 night rabbits were too close to each other. Shifeng was a swordsman. He did not possess any long-ranged attacking capabilities, so how could he lure monsters? Time passed bit by bit. Everyone was extremely anxious. If Shifeng accidentally failed, then it would be a party wipe. However, Shifeng was calm. He moved not an inch as he watched the faraway night rabbits. At this moment, a cool breeze blew past. A dead leaf on the trees was sent flying over. Seeing the dead leaf hovering down towards the night rabbit, Shifeng picked up a small stone beside him. Gently, he tossed the stone over. The direction the stone flew to was towards the night rabbit closest to the boss. We're finished. Everyone understood what kind of outcome this would be. It would definitely be a combination of 1 boss and 7 night rabbits rushing towards them, turning them into blood sacrifices. The moment the stone was about to hit the night rabbit, the dead leaf just happened to have blocked between the stone and the night rabbit. The stone struck the dead leaf, smashing it onto the night rabbit. The night rabbit abruptly turned to look at its surroundings, only discovering a leaf. However, how could a leaf hitting it be so painful? Subsequently, the night rabbit left its unit to observe the surroundings. It looked around aimlessly, not knowing what it was trying to find. It had unknowingly moved over 20 yards away from its unit, and it was still moving further and further away. Too godly. Lonely Snow could not help but exclaim. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. Everyone else had dumbly nodded as well. What kind of accurate judgment and aim was required to hit the dead leaf while hitting the night rabbit, and thereby confusing the night rabbit's hatred, causing it to look for its target blindly? Even calling it as an ultimate skill was not excessive. Was Shifeng really a noob? He couldn't be some gaming god here to make a fool of them, right? Summoner, the rest is up to you. Shifeng walked to the rock's location. He looked at the summoner, clapping the person's shoulders as he spoke, smiling. Chapter 27, Shifeng's Improved Party. Chapter 27, Shifeng's Improved Party. ___. Hearing Shifeng's comment, the summoner, Gluttonous Mouse, suddenly panicked. He did not understand what Shifeng wanted him to do. If he had performed badly and was kicked from the party as a result, he would regret it until he died. It was hard to find a good party during this time, not to mention a party with an expert leading it. It was impossible to join such a party, even if you begged. Relax, I won't let you do anything dangerous. You just have to summon out a flame sprite and follow my instructions. You don't have to do anything else, Shifeng said with a smile, trying ease the nerves of Gluttonous Mouse a little. Currently, summoners were not strong, mainly due to the incapability of their skills. A summoner's method of attack mainly relied on their summoned creatures, whereas their normal attack was the low-damage magic bullet. However, a summoner with awesome skills could become a one-man army. It was especially true for summoners who could call out powerful elemental creatures. They could kill elite monsters as if they were just playing around. Party leader, rest assured, I'll definitely do it. Gluttonous Mouse loudly said, his tone filled with respect. He was like a student who had met his teacher. Everyone else, distance yourselves from that rock, 20 yards away from it would be the best. Pay attention not to lure the other monsters. Shifeng turned around and said to the other party members. Yes, party leader. The other party members loudly replied. Their current attitudes were completely different from before. Shifeng was slightly shocked by everyone's performance. Why was each and every one of them so obedient all of a sudden? However, Shifeng did not know that the single stone he threw just now had completely shocked every one of them. They were filled with admiration towards Shifeng's stone-throwing technique. Such skill and accuracy were definitely not something a normal person could do. Professional players might not even be able to do so. Worshipping the strong was a common sight within a game. These level 1 noobs were no exception. At this moment, the gaze everyone used to look at Shifeng was completely different. Before, they merely felt that Shifeng was a good commander. Now, however, Shifeng was a strong person they worshipped. They had faintly grown a sense of reverence for Shifeng. Standing to the side, Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, proudly saying, "How is it? Following Brother Feng isn't bad, right?" Lonely Snow silently nodded his head, rejoicing for the decision he made to follow after Shifeng. Shifeng was definitely a beta tester expert. Without sufficient experience and practice, such techniques were impossible to accomplish. Only a beta tester could possibly do it. Ha ha ha. What do you plan to do in the future? Blackie suddenly asked. He started to hatch ideas towards Lonely Snow. Blackie wanted to poach Lonely Snow for their workshop, even though the workshop was still non-existent. There was a 100% chance for Cola to join them, but Lonely Snow still did not have any plans to move in such a direction. The future. Lonely Snow had never considered it before. He was but an average player. He did not have any big ambitions, only wanting to earn some cash from playing games. He said honestly, "I have never considered it before. I see that your techniques are quite good. Why don't you join us for now?" Blackie nonchalantly asked. Really? Lonely Snow had anxiety about his future after Blackie's question. He did not know where he wanted to go. If he could party with an expert, then it could not get any better. Of course. However, we still need to look at your future performance. We don't just simply accept people, Blackie proudly said, pretending to be an expert. Thank you, Brother Black. Lonely Snow happily responded. He never imagined his luck would be so great as to be noticed by an expert. Seeing Lonely Snow agree, Blackie released a sigh of relief. Currently, Blackie was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. He couldn't help out Shifeng much in God's domain, but he could still help out in regards to administration. There wasn't even a shadow of their workshop as of this moment. There was also the debt of 16,000 credits. The workshop's members consisted of only Shifeng and himself. It was definitely the poorest workshop in history. If this was found out by the others, they would definitely turn around and leave. Now, Blackie could only fake being an expert to lure people to join their workshop. At this moment, Shifeng was currently explaining the contents of the operation to the summoner. The operation was to let Gluttonous Mouse lure the remaining 6 night rabbits by controlling his flame sprite. Because the night rabbit that was closest to the boss was no more, luring the other night rabbits would not attract the boss. They could lure the monsters with ease. The flame sprite was extremely weak. Its HP was only a pitiful 15 points, and it would die in a single hit. However, its movement speed was extremely quick. Adding to its very small size, trying to hit it would be a difficult task. Start the operation. Mouse, remember to maintain a distance of 4 yards or above while circling around the rock, Shifeng reminded once more. Gluttonous Mouse nodded his head. Carefully, he controlled the flame sprite to lure the 6 night rabbits. When the sprite entered the 35-yard distance, the nearest elite night rabbit discovered the flame sprite. Suddenly, it turned its body around and rushed towards the flame sprite. The other night rabbits also came rushing along. Seeing the night rabbits taking the bait, Gluttonous Mouse immediately controlled the flame sprite and ran. The 6 night rabbits were in hot pursuit, but their speed could no match for the flame sprite. In a moment, the flame sprite had arrived beneath the large rock. It had lured the 6 night rabbits over and started circling around the large rock. On the other side, Kola had already aggroed the night rabbit that had left its unit. Kola interchanged between blocking and using his new skill, Divine Strike. With the effects of 2 pieces of bronze equipment, a single hit from Divine Strike had caused 26 damage. It was a lot higher compared to the 11 or 12 damage caused by a normal strike. Also, Divine Strike had the added effect of increasing hatred. It became a lot easier to hold aggro. The night rabbit was killed off within a short moment. It dropped 5 coppers. After this night rabbit was handled, only the 6 night rabbits that kept on circling around the large rock remained. I'll lure the night rabbits. Kola, pay attention to pull the monster. Shifeng picked up another small stone, throwing it at the night rabbit that ran at the rear. The night rabbit rubbed its cranium after being struck on it. The rabbit turned around, discovering Shifeng that had thrown the stone. The night rabbit suddenly became enraged. It madly hopped towards Shifeng with its powerful legs. As for the other night rabbits, they were still excitedly chasing after the flame sprite, failing to notice the disappearance of one of their companions. Receive it. Seeing the night rabbit was only 20 yards away from the party, Shifeng commanded. Kola rushed ahead, sending a divine strike towards the night rabbit's head. The night rabbit's target immediately changed, extending its claws towards Kola's cranium. However, Kola had reacted quickly by dodging his body sideways. After avoiding the attack, Kola continued by using punishment. The skill had once more strengthened the night rabbit's hatred to Kola. Everyone, focus fire. Shifeng inwardly applauded after seeing Kola's performance. He had never imagined Kola's ability to learn would be this great. He had already found out about the night rabbit's attack patterns after going through slightly more than 10 battles. No wonder he was the core MT of a first-rate guild, 10 years later. His potential was limitless. The night rabbit in front of Kola had fallen within 20 seconds. It had even dropped a skill book for swordsman, Double Chop. Shifeng immediately learned it without reservations. Double Chop, action type. Requires, sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0-300. Rapidly deals damage twice. Every slash of the sword deals 120% plus 15 damage, also increasing bleeding effect by 20%. Duration of 10 seconds. Stacks up to a maximum of 5 times. Cooldown, 8 seconds. This skill book had greatly increased Shifeng's explosive power. As for the problem of getting used to the skill, it was non-existent for Shifeng. After playing for 10 years as a swordsman, the skills belonging to the job were deeply ingrained into Shifeng's bones. As long as Shifeng got a hold of these skills, he would be able to utilize them to their greatest potential. Shifeng had also lured the remaining 5 night rabbits over, one after another. The party had killed the rabbits one by one, and following the death of the final night rabbit, a golden glow appeared around Shifeng's body. He had risen to level 2. At the same time, the 5 night rabbits had contributed to the party a piece of bronze plate armor for Guardian Knights. The equipment increased Kola's HP to 390 points and his defense to 56. It had also increased Kola's ability to resist against the night rabbit chieftain, Willy. Chapter 28, The Horror of Hell Mode. Chapter 28, The Horror of Hell Mode. With the elites that were on guard all dead, only the boss, Willy, remained on the open field. At this moment, Willy was laying on the ground, sleeping. It would scratch its back from time to time, completely unaware of its missing henchman. Everyone, recover for now. I'll explain the method to raid Willy in a moment. Shifeng wanted everyone to ease up first. It would not be easy to face off against Willy. The fight would require a high degree of concentration because a single mistake would cause everyone to be buried together. Hearing Shifeng's command, everyone sat down to recuperate. They ate and drank to recover to their best state. Shifeng's finger waved and shook as he called up his attribute panel. He had recently reached level 2. Because of the Abyssal Blade, the free attribute points he obtained exceeded other players by 2 points. The choices he could make with his points were slightly more than the average player. In the initial period, it was sufficient for the agility of a swordsman to reach 20 points. However, Shifeng increased his to 30 points. There would be a fixed increase in the body's flexibility when agility reached 30 points. Subsequently, Shifeng added the remaining points into strength, making it easier for him to contend with the boss. Shifeng had on him 3 pieces of bronze equipment, a mysterious iron ring, and a magic weapon. Shifeng attributes had basically reached his own requirements. Character: Yi Feng, human. Affiliated kingdom: Star Moon. Title: Might of 1000. Job: swordsman. Level: 2, HP, 525-20. Attack power: 88. Defense power: 39. Attack speed: 15. Movement speed: 13. Attributes: Strength 32, Agility 30, Endurance 24, Intelligence 13, Vitality 13. With such attributes, Shifeng had more confidence dealing with Willy. Seeing everyone recovered, Shifeng started explaining, Willy has 2 skills. One of them is Killing Feast. When used, Willy will ignore hatred and randomly attack the nearest players. Blackie and Lonely, you two have to pay attention to your positioning. The other skill is Death Claws. Cola, you have to distance yourself from the boss before this skill is used. Lonely Snow, pay attention to interrupt the boss. I'll remind you when the time comes. Another point to take note of, Willy is very smart, so don't keep on using the same attack pattern. Alright, that's it. If we're ready, then start the battle. Cola. Brother Feng, is there nothing else we have to pay attention to? Blackie walked up to Shifeng's side, whispering. This place was the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Not everyone was an expert, as well. However, Shifeng's explanation was so simple that it made them feel conquering this boss was very easy. However, there were so many elite parties which had died inside normal mode, so how could hell mode be so simple? Party leader, are there no details we need to pay attention to? Everyone was very worried. They all held anticipation in their gazes as they looked towards Shifeng, hoping that he would speak more about the finer details. They were noobs, so there were a lot of things they did not understand. In regards to an expert like Shifeng, the things he felt were common knowledge were definitely not common to noobs like them. Elites could not be compared to a boss. The other elite parties must have definitely died at the hands of the boss. Although their equipment was better than an elite party's, they were still level 1 noobs. They clearly knew their own worth. You guys worry too much. Relax. When the time comes, I'll tell you what you should do and when you should do it, so don't worry about it. Cola, start the fight and remember to dodge more often. A single healer will not be able to match up to the boss damage. Shifeng smiled. He felt his party members were quite interesting. They were much more serious about the details than he had thought. In his previous life, Shifeng had entered Hell Mode dungeons countless times as the captain of Shadow. There was also no lack of 100-men dungeons amongst those times. So, how could he not know how to guide a few noobs to beat a small boss? Cola had no choice but to go at it hard. Willy abruptly leaped up the moment Cola entered its detection range. Its mouth salivated when it saw Cola, and its 2 pairs of steel claws intertwined to produce sparks. Cola had clearly stimulated Willy's heart of massacre. It lifted its steel claws and hastily dashed towards Cola. Start casting heals. All damage dealers prepare to attack Willy's limbs. Shifeng commanded when he saw Willy's menacing appearance. Just when Shifeng finished speaking, Willy had arrived before of Cola. Before Cola could react, its sharp claws had fallen from the sky, slashing at Cola's neck. Peng! Cola instinctively used his shield to block the steel claws, forming 3 brilliant streaks of sparks. There were also 3 claw marks left on the shield. Due to the immense rushing force, Cola was forced to retreat 5 or 6 steps as he stabilized his body. Above his head, a damage of -103 appeared. Before Cola could even attack, Willy once again waved out its steel. This time, Cola was sent flying with his shield, and a damage of -105 points appeared. Only at this moment did the heal land on Cola, recovering 43 HP for him. It was a truly insignificant amount when compared to the damage Cola received. Everyone was shocked. The movement speed and damage of the boss was too horrifying. If Cola did not possess 2 pieces of bronze equipment, or if he did not block the attacks with his shield, he would have simply died from these 2 strikes. Lonely Snow, use charge on Willy. Blackie, use evil whip. Shifeng had long since expected such a situation. He quickly instructed Blackie to use a binding skill. Lonely Snow reacted by using a charge to block Willy's next attack and saved Cola's life. However, Lonely Snow's attack had only caused -11 damage to Willy. He became dumbfounded by it. He had added most of his attribute points into strength, and he even had 2 pieces of bronze equipment on him. Yet, he had dealt such a small amount of damage. It should be known that the boss in front of him had 6,000 HP. Blackie also finished chanting from the side, sending out his evil whip. 5 streaks of pitch-black thorns suddenly constricted Willy's legs. Shifeng took the chance to circle around to Willy's rear. With the abyssal blade in hand, he used double chop on Willy's neck, causing -66 and -67 damage. His attack also caused a bleeding effect, causing Willy to lose 8 HP every second, lasting for 10 seconds. The high damage immediately caused Willy to switch its hatred to Shifeng. However, Shifeng did not give it any chance. With his 30 agility, Shifeng easily dodged away from the steel claws, appearing 5 yards away from Willy. Ayo! 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 Willy furiously bellowed as it rushed at Shifeng. Ranged players start attacking. Cola, come over and hold Willy after you're done recovering. Shifeng systematically retreated while he dodged Willy's claws. However, the others watching Shifeng were shocked to their souls. This was because Willy's claws would graze by Shifeng's cranium every time it attacked, blowing his hair into a dance. Although everyone was shocked, they never stopped attacking. Magic attacks were sent out one after another, whereas Lonely Snow used Whirlwind Slash at Willy's rear. However, not one of those damages had exceeded -20 points. Willy's HP slowly decreased. When it was occasionally struck by Shifeng, its HP would drop by a segment. Willy's HP had fallen to 90% within a moment. Willy became enraged as it started a mad dance with its claws. It used Death Claws, greatly increasing its attack speed. Shifeng was nearly hit by it. Fortunately, however, he had used the Abyssal Blade to block the attack, only receiving -130 damage from it. At this moment, the Cola rushed up with his full HP. He used a Divine Strike on Willy's head, followed by a punishment. Willy's hatred only switched to Cola after a series of attacks. The switching of hatred had also interrupted Willy's Death Claws, returning Willy to its normal state. Seeing Willy change targets, Shifeng waved out a thundering flash. 3 streaks of thunder passed through Willy's body, dealing -92, -116, -137 damage. At the same time, giving Willy a damage amplification effect, it allowed others to deal 20% more damage to it. The fight with Willy became much easier. Blackie was sending out dark arrows without stopping, each dealing over -50 damage. Whereas the others only managed to deal over -20 damage to Willy. Being given a painful beating, Willy was just about to turn around and attack Shifeng when Cola used both Divine Strike and Punishment once more. Willy's hatred was quickly pulled back to Cola. When Willy turned back to Cola, Shifeng used a chop on it. In such a way, Shifeng and Cola took turns aggroing Willy, causing it unable to attack any players. Willy's HP continuously dropped until it was 30%. Willy entered a berserk state, its body increasing by several sizes. Melee players stay away from the boss. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Healer, heal me. Shifeng loudly shouted. In its current state, Willy was definitely going to use its big move, Killing Feast. Lonely Snow and Cola immediately distanced themselves from the boss after hearing Shifeng's command, letting Shifeng tank the boss by himself. When the two of them had run out of the 10-yard range, Willy disappeared. No one understood what happened. When Willy reappeared, it had already arrived at Shifeng's back, and its steel claws abruptly descended. Shifeng had long since been ready for this. He used his sword to block the incoming claws. However, just after blocking this attack, Willy once again disappeared and again appeared behind Shifeng. Within 2 short seconds, Willy had attacked Shifeng's back 7 times. Fortunately, Shifeng's agility had reached 30 points. It was barely enough to match up to Willy's speed. However, every attack Shifeng blocked would still take away a significant amount of HP from him. The heals he received also continuously recovered his HP. -96, -97, +46, -96, -97, +48, +32, -96, -97, +46. If Shifeng did not possess 520 HP and blocked every claw that came at him, Shifeng would have died from Willy's killing feast with 100% certainty. At this moment, Shifeng's remaining HP did not reach 100 points. "Get rid of it," Shifeng loudly shouted. After using his big move, Willy would enter a weakened state. It was the perfect chance to kill it. Everyone continuously greeted Willy with their attacks, finally shaving off Willy's remaining 30% HP. It dropped 4 items. Just as everyone was about to let loose their breaths, Shifeng took a look at everyone's current status. The healer, Drowsy Sloth's remaining MP did not reach 20%, and the other mag's MP did not reach 10%. Shifeng hurriedly said, "Everyone, sit down and recover immediately." Everyone was confused. Didn't the boss just die? Why must they be in such a hurry? However, everyone still listened to Shifeng's command to sit down and recover. Before they had even sat down and recuperated with food and drinks for 5 seconds, a violent roar entered everyone's ears. The roar had shaken the entire deathly forest, and following it, a black shadow leaped out from within the forest. The black shadow was a gigantic werewolf. The werewolf looked at Willy's corpse, then looked towards Shifeng and the others. Its pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson red. Just when it wanted to release a roar, Shifeng dashed towards it with Wind Blade. Immediately, Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. 9 chains appeared and bound the werewolf and its mouth, preventing it from making a sound. At this moment, everyone finally saw the werewolf statistics. It had a whopping 2 bars of HP. Werewolf Felt, Lord Rank. Level 3. HP 12,000. Crap, why is there a Lord boss? Blackie cursed. They had barely rested just after killing a boss, and now there was a Lord in front of them. Lords were a rank higher than chieftains. The game was literally trying to kill them. Everyone remember, absolutely do not let Werewolf Felt let out another roar. Shifeng continuously reminded everyone. However, the others were clearly frightened. Not because of Werewolf Felt's body and HP, but because of that pair of horrifying crimson eyes. They gave off an intimidating feeling to everyone that made it hard to move. Chapter 29 Extraordinary State. Chapter 29 Extraordinary State. In front of the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, the numbers of level 2 players gathering were increasing. There was also an endless stream of players diving down into the dungeon. Because there were a lot of level 2 players, there was quite an amount of players who had set up stalls, peddling to the side. Good quality level 0 common equipment, don't miss it when you pass by. You can only go down the dungeon with good equipment. Equipment is limited, hurry over and buy. Small HP potions instantly heals 90 HP once. A must-have tool for a battle that is worthy of you. God's Domain had been open for over 10 hours now. The players here were all level 2 players. After over 10 hours of battling, they had gathered quite a few items. Many level 2 players had intended to sell the items which they had no use for, switching them for something they could use. Such a situation had caused business to flourish at the Deathly Forest. Although the number of players in front of the Deathly Forest continued to increase, the number of parties entering the dungeon kept on decreasing. Only those parties that were unaware would enter the Deathly Forest. However, after those players had been properly nurtured by the Deathly Forest, they suddenly discovered their previous beliefs to be very naive. Hence, they obediently stood in front of the dungeon. They talked about life with other parties while watching new parties enter the dungeon with a smile. They had also investigated reports of the deathly forest together with the experienced parties, mutually improving their strategies to conquer the dungeon. Following wave after wave of players entering and dying out of the dungeon, the deathly forest had finally become the sore point of every player in Redleaf Town. Every player who entered the deathly forest only had one impression of the dungeon. It was extremely horrifying. Currently, in the resurrection graveyard of the deathly forest, 6 streaks of white light flashed into existence. Following which, 6 figures revealed themselves from within. There is just no way to clear this dungeon. Snow, I think we would be better off grinding monsters or doing quests. Just after reviving, Zhao Yueru stamped her delicate feet, her chest heaving up and down. The cuteness of her enraged, yet delicate appearance instantly attracted the attention of a crowd of male players. Gentle Snow shook her head, saying in contemplation, "Our gains inside the deathly forest are relatively good, so we can't just easily give up. But the forest inside the deathly forest is too large. Adding in the great number of small paths, we would easily become lost without a map. However, I believe that amongst the numerous pathways, there must be a few that lead to the boss location. The other paths are only there as a trap to confuse us. That is why we are always being ambushed by the night rabbits. The more we fight, the more night rabbits will come. For now, let's investigate for some information and see if we can complete a map for the deathly forest." Everyone felt that Gentle Snow's speculation made sense, especially about the part where they attacked the night rabbits. Occasionally, a chilling arrow aimed at the cleric, Xiao Yue, would appear from within the forest. If it wasn't for Xiao Yue's skill at dodging, they would have long since party wiped. Also, the deeper they went into the forest, the more numerous the night rabbits became. In the end, the night rabbits became too overwhelming in numbers. They were unable to shoulder all of the rabbits, which resulted in their return through death. If they could find the correct path, they might have already cleared the dungeon by now. Zhao Yueru could only nod her head in agreement. The party's leader was, in fact, Gentle Snow, and Gentle Snow's speculations were always very accurate. Zhao Yueru could not help but believe in her. Going with the suggestion, Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru nonchalantly shouted a few times, stating that they wanted to trade information about the deathly forest. It couldn't be denied, the striking effect created by 2 great beauties calling out. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the deathly forest started to boil as players rushed over, one after another. Every one of them wanted to be the first in position. Too many of the male players, this was a great chance for them to talk to a goddess. Who knew, if the goddess had looked upon them, they might be able to live a blessed life in the future. Meanwhile, inside the hell mode of the deathly forest, the sky within the dungeon had already darkened. Thousands of birds soared to the skies, leaving the forest in a deadly silence. Werewolf Felt was not any common monster. It was a very famous werewolf. In the past, it massacred countless in Redleaf Town, nearly turning Redleaf Town into a town of death. In a fit of rage, the Star Moon Kingdom had sent out its army to surround Felt. In the end, after being heavily wounded by the great swordmaster, Hilton, Felt had escaped into the deathly forest to treat its wounds. It was the reason why the dungeon of the deathly forest existed. In hell mode, Felt had 3 absolute skills. The first one was Death Stare. Enemies who felt stared at would have their attack speed and movement speed greatly reduced. If one had a weak willpower, they might not even be able to move. Presently, only Shifeng had 30 points in agility. After he had activated the 3 hidden basic skills he possessed, he gained a certain amount of resistance towards the Death Stare. As for the other people, their reactions would become very sluggish. That was why Shifeng remained the one to keep Werewolf Felt in check, whereas Drowsy Sloth continuously healed Shifeng. However, Drowsy Sloth's casting speed had slowed by half. As for the melee players, they were no help whatsoever. However, it was not because they did not want to help, but it was because they had no way of helping at all. Werewolf Felt's attack speed was just too fast. It was to the degree where they couldn't react to its attacks. It was as if they were facing off against an expert that came straight out from a wuxia novel. Normal people had no chance to interfere whatsoever. They would only be creating more trouble if they had rushed up to the battle. So, It was still better to just watch from the side. Currently, only the ranged mags dealt damage. However, the damage caused was just too low. Even Blackie's dark arrows were only dealing -24 damage each. Lonely, interrupt the roar. Seeing Felt abruptly inhaling, Shifeng immediately shouted. Lonely Snow had long since prepared for this moment. Immediately, he went forward and used charge, causing Felt to enter a 1-second fainted state. Then, he quickly retreated. Shifeng took the chance to use Thundering Flash, Double Chop, and Chop. One attack after another landed on Felt's chest. Before Felt could even regain its breath, it had spat out a mouthful of blood. Shifeng had caused a terrifying -500 damage to it. Within an instant, Felt's HP had fallen to 78%. Everyone watching became dumbfounded. Regarding Shifeng's powerful actions, they only had one word to say: amazing. They were even more impressed by Shifeng's eyesight. He had actually discovered such a weakness on Felt's body. Now, everyone was further reassured that Shifeng was not as simple as he seemed. However, Shifeng did not display any great excitement. Although they had interrupted Hell's Roar and avoided a party wipe, this would create a reverse effect. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Werewolf Felt's condition became much more pleasant. It spun its head around and immediately slashed its sharp claws at Shifeng. The slashing speed of Felt's claws was even a notch quicker than before, filling the sky with the afterimages of its claws. However, Shifeng was not a weakling either. Strength, agility, and endurance, Shifeng activated the hidden basic skills of all three of these attributes. With these skills activated, it meant that Shifeng's constitution was no longer that of an average player, but an extraordinary one. Shifeng's greatest asset in coming into the Deathly Forest was this extraordinary state which he could activate at any given moment. With it, he could do things that normal players couldn't. Under a sky filled with after-images of claws, Shifeng could still remain safe and sound. It was as if Shifeng was dancing under the after-images. Occasionally, Shifeng used his sword to fend off the attacks which he could not avoid. This was the power of being under an extraordinary condition. His 5 senses became extremely sensitive, and his brain's processing abilities became exceptionally focused. Shifeng could utilize his body to its greatest potential. If it was an average player, however, they would be unable to carry out such feats. It was both mentally and physically taxing to the extraordinary condition. If Shifeng had not become accustomed to it before, he would only be able to maintain such a state for a few seconds. Claws and sword intertwined, creating countless dazzling sparks. Both sides had their HP continuously falling. Fortunately, Shifeng was able to survive the exchange with Drowsy Sloth's timely heals. Afterward, under Shifeng's command, Lonely Snow would occasionally interrupt the Hell's Roar, while Cola would hold back Felt whenever Shifeng was in danger, and Blackie would use Evil Whip to contain Felt's movements. In such a way, Werewolf Felt's HP continuously decreased, 70%, 60%, 30%. Everyone stand in a straight line facing the boss. Quickly. Shifeng hurriedly shouted when he saw Werewolf Felt's HP nearing 30%. Werewolf Felt would become the most frightening when its HP decreased to 30%. During this time, it was impossible to interrupt the Hell's Roar. They could only take it head-on. No one had any hesitation, they knew that the boss was about to go berserk. They immediately took action, forming a straight line against Werewolf Felt, while also maintaining a 30-yard distance away from it. The moment Werewolf Felt's HP reached 30%, its fur started changing colors. Within a moment, its fur had become snow white, and 2 streams of blood leaked from its eyes. Its chest also started to quickly expand, as if it was a swelled-up frog. Shifeng immediately activated Gravity Liberation, quickly arriving in front of everyone else. Cola, use Protection Blessing on me, Shifeng loudly shouted. Protection Blessing was able to reduce the damage taken by a party member by 50% for a duration of 6 seconds. It was a life-saving skill with a 5-minute cooldown, and right now was the perfect moment to use it. Protection Blessing of Guardian Knights and Shield Wall of Shield Warriors. These 2 skills had a high drop rate inside the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Before, the reason why Shifeng had wasted time on clearing out some unnecessary night rabbits was all to obtain this skill, protection blessing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.